Hello friends, welcome to Shadow Whisperer. All you see is darkness, just the sound of rain. Designed to help you relax, focus on the story, and drift into sleep. But before you do, remember to like the video and subscribe to the channel. And yes, feel free to share where you're listening from in the comments. Now, let's begin. They say some cities wear their peace like a borrowed suit, clean on the surface but all ill-fitting in the seams. That's how Halcyon Heights felt to me from the start. No graffiti anywhere, no loud car alarms going off, no drunks stumbling home at 3 in the morning. The lawns were always perfect green, the streets stayed empty, quiet. It was peaceful, too peaceful. It was the kind of peace that made your teeth ache, like a drum that's never beaten, just stretched tight, waiting for something, for anything to break it. I moved to Halcyon Heights a few years back, left the big city grind behind me. Thought I was looking for a fresh start, a quieter life. My old job was in a place where the noise never stopped. Sirens screamed day and night. The city felt like a hungry beast, always wanting more. This town promised that kind of quiet, a place where nothing much happened, ever, where the biggest crime was a kid sneaking a cookie. I bought a small house with a big porch, planted some flowers, tried to settle in. I wanted to forget all that, to just fade away. Halcyon Heights felt like a clean slate, a place where nothing could touch me or bother me. I was wrong, so wrong about that. I was just a regular guy, a detective working in Halcyon Heights. Most days were slow, too slow. Filling out papers, helping old ladies find their lost cats. It wasn't exactly thrilling work, but I liked the quiet. I liked the peace that always felt a little off. My days were easy, predictable. I'd get coffee from the same small shop, talk to the same friendly faces every morning. I thought I had found my calm corner of the world, a place where the bad stuff stayed far away, a place where I could just be, finally, until the lights started to flicker. The first time, it was small, just a little pulse in the city's bright skyline. It happened late one night, a Tuesday. I was sitting in my living room, reading a dusty old book, enjoying the silence. My cat, Mittens, was curled up beside me, purring soft, a gentle sound. The house felt warm, safe. Then my lamp blinked, once. Just a tiny twitch of light, like a heart skipping just one beat. I blinked too, rubbed my eyes, thought nothing of it, just an old bulb. Then came a sound, a whistle, sharp and clean. It wasn't a bird or the wind. It sounded like it came from everywhere and nowhere. It hummed in the air, thin and clear. It was the kind of whistle you'd hear from a referee, starting a big game, a big match. The sound hung in the air, then faded. A shiver went down my back, a cold one. It was so clear, so precise. Mittens jumped down from the couch. Her ears twitched, looking around. She seemed to sense something wrong. I tried to shake it off, just nerves, but the whistle stuck in my head. Then someone died, for real. The next morning, the call came in. My phone buzzed on my desk. My hand felt heavy picking it up. It was about Charles Desmarais, found drowned in his own heated pool. The water was still warm, they said. I drove out to his place, my stomach already tight. The sun was bright, almost too bright. It felt wrong for such a morning. A death. Charles was an old sports commentator, half forgotten by most people now. He used to talk about games on TV, his voice big and booming. People used to say he made you feel like you were right there, in the stadium, hearing every crunch and cheer. But some folks in small groups still remembered him, especially for his voice, big and booming. It used to fill the air just like that whistle. He had a quiet life now, away from the spotlight, lived in one of the biggest houses, with a fancy pool, a warm one. When we went to his house, it was fancy, too big, too perfect. Like everything else in Halcyon Heights, the kind of house with manicured hedges, and a gate, and a long driveway, everything neat, nothing out of place. The pool was shimmering, blue, so clear it looked like glass, but it looked so wrong. His body was pale, still floating, face down, unmoving. My stomach clenched, a tight knot. It's always tough seeing that. A life gone, just like that, even after all these years on the force. The medical examiner was already there, her face grim, focused. She gave me a quick nod, no words needed. We pulled up the security camera footage. It was grainy, a little blurry, but we could see things clearly enough. His porch lights started flickering fast, like they were talking in code, a frantic blinking. a silent language. It lasted for maybe 20 seconds. Then they just went dark, all at once, leaving the pool in shadow just for a moment. Then the whistle came through the audio. It was faint, but clear, the same sharp, clean sound. My blood ran cold, a little trickle. It was that sound, the one from last night. No sign of anyone breaking in, nothing forced. The gates were locked tight. The doors were all secure. It was like he just let it happen. Impossible. Just the flickering and the whistle. My gut twisted. It felt strange, like a cold knot forming deep inside. This wasn't a normal drowning. My cop instincts screamed that, loud and clear. There was something else here, something dark. Then we saw something else. On the fogged-up glass of the poolside window, someone had written words, big, messy letters, like a child's scrawl, but filled with menace. First half. My breath hitched, caught in my throat. My eyes stared at the words. They seemed to glow, even in the dim light. What in the world was going on here? This wasn't just a simple accident. It felt like something much worse, like the start of a very bad game, a game I didn't want to play, but it felt like I was already in it. The quiet town, it felt like a trap now. The perfect green lawns, they mocked me. The silence felt heavy, like a blanket of fear. The city tried to stay calm, to pretend. News reports called it a tragic accident. But a shiver went through everyone. People started locking their doors earlier. My neighbors, usually so carefree. Now they eyed each other with fear in their eyes. Even the perfect lawns seemed to look a little sad. Like the grass knew something was wrong. The leaves rustled, whispering secrets. My sleep became a restless mess. I saw Charles's pale face in my dreams. He floated there, unmoving. And that whistle, it kept playing. Over and over in my head. A constant, sharp reminder of what was coming. I tried to tell my boss about the whistle, about the flickering lights. He just nodded slow, looked tired. Just a coincidence, detective. He said it with a sigh, rubbing his temples. People get crazy after a death. But I knew, deep down, it wasn't a coincidence. It was a sign, a dark promise. I spent extra hours at the station, rereading reports, checking timelines, trying to find something, anything. The town buzzed with whispers now. Did you hear the whistle? The lights flickered at my house too. The air felt thick with unspoken fear. Kids were kept indoors after dark. The cheerful sounds of summer faded away. Then the second one happened. Victim 2, Eleanor Murchison. My heart sank when I heard her name. It felt like a punch, right in the gut. She was a firebrand activist, they called her. Back in the old days, she was loud. She spoke up against violent sports culture, especially in Europe, where it got wild. She fought hard, with passion, for peace, for fair play. Age hadn't made her quiet. She still had a sharp tongue. She still had a lot to say, they said. I remembered seeing her on local news once, feisty, with bright, angry eyes, fighting for what she believed in, always. She was a small woman, but fierce, like a tiny lion, always roaring. We found her at her home, cooked alive in her sauna. The heat was still on, turned up high. The steam was thick in the room. It smelled awful, like burnt wood and something else, something worse. Like scorched flesh, it made my gorge rise. My stomach churned, it really did. I had to turn away for a second to steady myself. The smell clung to my clothes, to my skin. It followed me home, even after a shower. A terrible memory burned into my mind. I looked around the street outside. The lights out there started to flicker again. Just like before, the same pattern. A frantic dance of light and shadow. Then that sharp, clear whistle cut through the air. It was the same exact sound. My heart hammered against my ribs. A drum. A frantic, sickening beat. I knew, deep down, this was connected. It had to be. There was no other way. This was a pattern, a cruel, clear pattern. On the wooden door of the sauna, smeared into the condensation, words again. With a trembling fingertip, someone had written it. The letters dripped like tears. Halftime. The air went cold around me. The hair on my arms stood straight up, every hair prickling with dread. This wasn't random, not at all. This was planned. Someone was sending a message. A very twisted, very cruel message. My mind raced, trying to put pieces together. First half, halftime. It was like a sports game, but a game with real people dying. And I was the one trying to figure out the rules. The rules of this horrifying match. My chest felt tight, like a vice. I could almost hear the clock ticking, counting down. The panic in Halcyon Heights grew stronger. You could feel it in the air, a thick blanket of dread pressing down, people whispering, looking over their shoulders. They avoided eye contact, like fear was catching. Kids weren't playing outside as much. The swings in the park hung empty. The silence felt heavy now, not peaceful, just scary. My own apartment felt less like a haven, more like a cage, with me trapped inside. The perfect quiet was gone, shattered. I spent hours poring over notes, replaying the whistle sound, searching for any link, any clue. Who would do this, and why? What kind of monster plays a game with lives? It twisted my gut, kept me awake. I started drawing lines on a big corkboard. Victim 1, Victim 2, connecting them with string, trying to find a pattern. Charles, the commentator. Eleanor, the activist. Both connected to sports, but in different ways. My boss was getting worried now. The mayor was calling, angry calls. Halcyon Heights wasn't quiet anymore. It was screaming, silently. The whole town was on edge. I could feel their fear, a heavy weight. Then the third victim was found. Oliver Brann. By now, the terror was real for everyone. It gripped the town, a cold hand. Oliver was an ex-referee, like a retired judge for sports. He was one of the few who worked those big games, infamous international games from the early 1980s, games that people talked about, for good or bad. Some loved him, some hated him for his calls. He had a reputation, a famous one, known for being tough, unbending. His decisions changed careers, even lives. My hand trembled when I got the call. I already knew what would come next, before they even told me who it was. The flicker, the whistle. Always the same, always. It was almost a sick comfort in its sameness, a predictable horror. Oliver was found in his attic, hung up by electrical cable, his body swaying a little, just a bit, like a pendulum, back and forth. His mouth was stuffed, gagged, with strips of an old football jersey. The fabric was faded, probably from years ago, like a trophy, a sickening prize. The attic was dark and dusty. The air felt thick, hard to breathe, like dust and old regrets hanging heavy. I felt a cold dread crawl up my back. It coiled there, digging in. The silence in that attic was heavy, just the creak of the house and my own breathing. It was a silence that screamed, louder than any noise. And there it was again, etched into the dust on the attic floor. The words, like a message from hell itself, scratched out. Second half. My jaw tightened, a hard knot. My teeth ground together, making a tiny squeak. This wasn't random, not even close. This was a person, a killer, reenacting a match, a twisted, bloody game. And I was watching it unfold, like a spectator, but stuck in it. With no way out, it felt like. My hands shook just a little. My sleep was gone. My mind raced day and night. I felt sick to my stomach most times. The faces of the victims flashed in my head. Charles, Eleanor, Oliver. Their dead eyes stared, accusing me. Who was next and why? What was the connection, the thread? I felt like I was running out of time, like the clock was ticking down. And I didn't know the score. The fear wasn't just for the victims anymore. It was for everyone. For this quiet, fake, peaceful town. And for myself, maybe too. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was part of this game now. A pawn in someone else's sick plan. The investigation became my whole life. I ate, slept, breathed the case. My apartment became a mess of files and notes, coffee cups piled up like tiny towers. My eyes were constantly red and stinging, but I couldn't stop. I wouldn't. I started seeing shadows everywhere. jumping at every little sound. My own footsteps sounded too loud in the quiet. The whistle played in my dreams, a constant, nagging tune. It felt like it was inside my head, always. My colleagues looked at me with pity. They saw how tired I was, but they didn't see the game, not like I did. They still thought it was random, that the killer was just crazy. But I knew better. I knew it was more. Then the fourth call came in. It was Linda Kostova. My heart sank right to my shoes. A heavy stone dropped into my chest. She was a Bulgarian immigrant. Her story was sad, very sad. Her father was a goalkeeper in a European match. That game ended in a disaster. A Ezerkiland Staznyolk van Haram Balkan Cup final. A riot broke out, total chaos. 47 people died that day. Senseless deaths, just awful. Linda had lived with that shadow. It followed her, like a ghost. A quiet, sad woman, always. She rarely spoke of it, but you could see the pain in her eyes, a deep, old sorrow that never healed. She came to Halcyon Heights for peace, just like me, hoping to escape. Now she was another victim. We found her in a storage facility. It was huge and cold, filled with rows and rows of things. Dust sheets covered old furniture, boxes stacked high, reaching the ceiling. But in one big space, it was different, surrounded by old stadium seats, arranged like bleachers, like a small stadium, wooden seats, chipped and faded, as if people were meant to sit there and watch something terrible. My breath hitched again. The air felt heavy, charged, like static before a storm. Linda was there, her throat cut with surgical precision, like a doctor's cut, so clean, not a single messy tear, just a perfect line. It wasn't a messy, wild attack. It was careful, very careful, done by someone who knew what they were doing, someone with steady hands and a cold heart. Blood was on the concrete floor, painted in deliberate lines, forming a crude football pitch, like a child's drawing, but with blood. My stomach twisted, bile rising. It was so sick, so very wrong. Every fiber of my being screamed. This was a nightmare, a living, breathing one, on a white plastic folding chair beside her body. The last message, written with disturbing neatness. Full time. By then I knew the whole pattern. 4 quarters to a game, like football. But this wasn't just about sports. This was something else entirely. This was revenge, a dark play, a twisted dance, choreographed carefully. The full story was starting to form in my mind, a horror I couldn't have imagined. I spent days, nights, digging through old archives, the police databases, the public records, dusty papers, forgotten files, grainy VHS footage, blurry videos. My eyes hurt from staring at screens. My mind screamed for answers. I looked for anyone connected to that 1983 riot, commentators, activists, referees, anyone mentioned in those old reports. I drank coffee like it was water. My head throbbed, a constant ache. My fingers flew across the keyboard, searching for names, connections. Then I found it, a small article, a forgotten story, buried deep. And that's when I saw him, in an old picture, black and white, a newspaper clipping, yellowed with age, Emil Kravik. Young, but with a sharp jaw. His referee uniform was crisp. He looked serious, even back then. Even as a young man, he looked stern. The caption said he was one of the referees, one of the ones who tried to control the chaos, but failed terribly. The article spoke of the victims, and then a small mention. His younger brother, a little boy, had been trampled in that 1983 riot, the same riot that took Linda's father, a senseless death so tragic, a casualty of hate, nationalism, and sports gone wrong, completely mad. My blood ran cold, a deep, icy chill. Emil disappeared after that day. Everyone thought he was dead, lost, just gone forever. He vanished without a trace, a ghost. No body, no goodbye, just disappeared from the world. But that rage, that sorrow, it must have simmered for years, turning him into this monster. We were wrong, so very wrong. He wasn't lost. He was here now, living in the shadows, biding his time, and he was playing a game with human lives, a horror show. I felt a cold dread deeper than before, a dread that settled in my bones. I thought about the riot, all those people gone, just like that. Emile had been watching, seeing it all. His brother, just a kid, crushed in the crowd, his little body, so small. That pain, it must have stayed with him, for all these years burning, like a slow fire in his soul, turning into this madness, this game of death, for revenge. He was punishing everyone he blamed for that day, for his loss. The commentators who fueled the frenzy, the activists who spoke against it but couldn't stop it, the referees who failed to keep order, and Linda, the innocent daughter, whose father was caught in the crossfire. He was a judge, a twisted judge, and I knew who the next target would be. My heart pounded with a terrible certainty. The referee was playing his final act, and I had to be there. It was a name I tried to forget, a pain I buried deep for years. My estranged brother, Mark. We hadn't talked in years, not since a bad fight, long ago, something stupid, about money. But the words cut deep and stayed. He had called me selfish, uncaring. I had called him greedy, obsessed. We hadn't spoken since, a decade. He was a sports reporter back then. He covered those big international games. He had even been at that 1983 final. He reported on the riot, wrote about the horror, the senselessness. He knew about Emile, just a little, from his reporting, from the old files. He had mentioned the missing referee once. He had even interviewed Oliver Brann years ago. Mark was the last piece, the final player. Emile was coming for him, I was sure of it. I had to warn him, to save him. I called his number, my hand shaking. It rang and rang. No answer, just voicemail. My voice cracked as I left a message. Mark, it's me. You have to listen. It's important. I didn't wait for a callback. I rushed to the Westvale Sports Arena. It was his favorite place for old times. He used to sneak in there when he was a kid, to watch the old games, to dream. It was abandoned, crumbling, an old, forgotten monument to glory. Smelled like wet concrete and old blood. The air was thick with it, a horrible smell, like neglect and decay, and something worse. Dust motes danced in the dim light. Through broken windows, weak sunlight filtered. Mannequins were everywhere, dressed in striped referee kits, standing in rows like silent soldiers, sitting in the bleachers, silent watchers. Their painted smiles seemed twisted, like a silent, mocking audience. The whole scene was bathed in orange light, sickly orange, from broken floodlights, like a dying sunset in a creepy dream. My heart pounded in my chest, a frantic drumbeat against my ribs. Every shadow seemed to move, to hide something. I crept through the decaying halls. My footsteps echoed, too loud. The silence was broken only by my gasps. Then I heard it, a faint muffled sound, like someone struggling, a desperate noise. I followed it, my gun drawn. On the midfield line, right in the center, sat a single folding chair, and tied to it, my brother. Pale, his face ghostly white, his eyes wide with terror, pupils huge, a gag in his mouth, silencing him. My blood ran cold, a freezing shock. He was alive, but barely. My throat tightened, tears stung my eyes. A wave of old guilt washed over me. All those years of silence, wasted. And now he was here, in this nightmare. "Welcome to overtime, detective." The voice came through the echoing speaker system. It was calm, so chillingly calm, like he was announcing the weather, not a death game. "The final whistle belongs to you." It was Emile, alive just as I had guessed. He was watching me from somewhere, hidden in the shadows, enjoying his show. His voice filled the arena, chillingly clear. "Do you know why he's here?" He asked me like a teacher. He covered the riot. He saw it all. He wrote about the victims, but not the true cost. Not the ones like my brother trampled underfoot, my hands clenched into fists, my knuckles white, straining. My brother's eyes were wide, full of fear and something else. Maybe a plea, a silent question, a desperate plea for help. I could feel Emil's eyes on me, like a predator, waiting for its prey. He had set this whole stage, for me, for us, to break me, to make me fall. He gave me two choices. His voice was clear, cutting through the arena. It echoed, bouncing off the walls. Execute your brother with this. A ceremonial referee pistol appeared on a table, right next to me, on the midfield line, gleaming under the sickly orange light. It looked heavy, cold, a single black pistol. It seemed to hum with evil in the dim light. And walk away free. He paused, letting the words hang there, each word a heavy stone, weighing me down. My mind screamed, a silent shout. Kill my own brother, the man I fought with, the man I loved, the man I missed, more than I knew. I couldn't. My stomach lurched, bile in my throat. The thought alone made me sick. My vision swam for a second. I wanted to scream, to rage. But then came the second choice. Refuse. His voice was still calm, like silk, smooth and deadly, like poison. And the charges wired beneath the stadium. My eyes scanned the ground, searching. I saw faint wires, just tiny ones, snaking across the dusty floor, almost invisible, hidden well, leading to dark, lumpy shapes. Will turn us all into scorched remains, bombs, real ones. My breath hitched, caught deep. A cold sweat broke out on my forehead. My brother's eyes were on me, a silent message of pure terror. His fear was a mirror, reflecting my own. He shook his head, just a little, telling me not to do it, not to choose. I had to think fast, so fast. My mind raced, trying to find a way. This was his game, his twisted revenge, and I was the final player. My hands shook, just a little. The referee pistol felt heavy on the table. It felt wrong, so wrong, like a piece of his evil, left for me. I looked at my brother again. His face was streaked with tears. My heart ached, a sharp pain. A lifetime of memories flashed through my mind. Childhood laughter, teenage fights, building forts in the woods, skipping rocks. The bond we had, even broken. I had to save him, no matter what. But how? How could I? I closed my eyes for a second. Just one small second to think. To clear my head from the panic. Emil wanted me to play his game. He wanted me to make that horrible choice. To become like him, twisted, to stain my soul with blood. I wouldn't. I wouldn't give him that satisfaction. I opened my eyes, my gaze fixed on the speakers. They were old, probably broken, hanging from the ceiling, pumping out Emil's calm, evil voice. They looked flimsy, not well secured. A desperate, crazy idea formed. It was my only shot. A long shot, but a shot. I grabbed the pistol, fast. My fingers closed around the cold metal. It felt wrong, so wrong. But a new resolve hardened me. I wasn't playing his game, not anymore. I aimed, not at my brother, not at Emil. I couldn't even see him. I aimed at the speaker system, the closest one, directly above me. I pulled the trigger. The gunshot exploded. A loud crack, like thunder. It echoed, reverberated, like a scream across the concrete cavern. The noise ripped through the arena. My ears rang, a loud buzz, a sharp, piercing sound like a fire alarm. It was enough. Enough noise, enough surprise. It was my distraction, my move. Backup swarmed in then. They had been waiting, outside, ready for my signal, my call. We had a plan, a desperate one. If I didn't call in, they would come anyway. But the gunshot was the signal, the green light. They burst through the doors, lights flashing, yelling, a flood of police finally here, screaming orders, guns drawn. The bomb squad was with them. They moved fast, like pros. They found the explosives, crude, but real, very real, enough to blow us all sky high. My brother was freed. He coughed, pulled the gag out, his eyes still wide, but now with hope. He looked at me, tears in his eyes, silent words of thanks. Relief washed over me, a warm wave. It spread through my body, easing the tension. We were safe. He was safe. The nightmare was almost over. Emil didn't fight them. He didn't resist arrest. He just stood there, calmly. He just smiled, a calm smile, polite, almost sweet, as they put the handcuffs on him. His eyes met mine, cold, but with a strange light, like a predator, still watching. I wanted you to win, he said. His voice was soft, almost a whisper. It barely carried over the noise. Good referees deserve closure. He was still playing his game, even now, even caught. My skin crawled, a shiver. His words were like ice, down my spine. They led him away. His smile stayed on his face, like he had won something after all. Like the game wasn't truly over, not for him. Mark and I, we hugged. It was awkward at first, then it was just pure relief and tears. I missed you, he whispered. My voice was thick, with emotion. Me too, little brother. We had a lot to talk about, a lifetime, but for now, just breathing, just being alive, was enough. Weeks later, the city tried to go back to normal. The quiet came back, but it felt different, tainted, broken. The perfect green lawns seemed less perfect. The silence felt heavy, haunted. People still locked their doors earlier. They looked at shadows and listened. The town was scarred, forever changed. The referee's game had left its mark. I took some time off work, needed to clear my head, to rest, but the rest never truly came, not really. I was cleaning out my voicemail archives, just clearing space, getting rid of old messages. My phone felt heavy in my hand. I scrolled through old birthday wishes, meeting reminders, boring stuff. And I found one that shouldn't have been there. A message from an unknown number, saved. It was static at first, just crackling. Then, the whistle. Sharp and clean, the same sound. My heart seized up, a cold grip. It squeezed, like an icy hand. And a faint whisper, so soft, but so clear, like breath on glass, chilling. Penalty shootouts next. The line went dead, just silence. But the sound echoed in my head. And the whisper. It stayed with me. It crawled under my skin, deep inside. I don't sleep much anymore. Not really. Because I know Emil wasn't alone, not ever. He had help. Someone else was out there. Someone who also cared about the game, a lot. Still playing the game, maybe. Watching, waiting. For the right moment, for the next move. And I'm still waiting. Every shadow, every flicker, every sudden quiet makes me jump. For the next whistle, for the next part of the match to begin. The game is not over, not at all. It's just resting, waiting for its next play. I'll never forget the way the snow swallowed sound. It was like the whole world held its breath. Every footstep became soft. Every whisper got sucked away. It felt like walking into a big white cotton ball. All quiet. Too quiet, maybe. We came here to save us. Stella and I, two frayed ends of what used to be a brilliant fire. Our love was like a warm blanket once. Now it felt thin, worn out, almost see-through. We hoped the crisp mountain air would help. We hoped it would breathe new life into our old flame. Maybe make it bright again. The idea was Stella's. She said, "Adam, we need a break. From everything." She meant from us. From the quiet meals. From the way we passed each other in the hall. From the hollow feeling inside. The crackling fireplaces, the smell of pine sap on melting logs. Maybe that would stitch us back together. Like a big warm quilt. Each piece of wood, each spark, a new thread. Instead, I watched that snow swallow more than sound. I watched it take people, one by one. It started slow, then faster, like a hungry mouth, until I was the only one left. But I'm getting ahead of myself. It all started when the storm trapped us in. Our drive up had been okay. The car hummed along. Stella looked out the window. She didn't talk much. Neither did I. It was hard to find words. The mountains grew bigger. They looked like giants. Their tops were covered in white hats. We left the paved road. The car bounced a lot. Gravel crunched under the tires. Then, we were on a small dirt path. Trees stood tall around us. They looked like dark soldiers. The snow began to fall then. Big, soft flakes, like white feathers. It covered the road fast, made everything hazy, like a dream. The cabin itself was old, it was ancient, but it looked nice, like something from a postcard. It stood there, quiet and strong, like it had seen a lot of winters. Logs were stacked like old bones, one on top of the other, each one held tight. Smoke curled from the chimney like a lazy snake. It drifted up into the sky. It smelled like comfort, like home. For a second, I felt hope. It sat hidden away between big, folded mountains. They hugged it close. There was no cell phone signal, no working Wi-Fi. The world outside just vanished. The brochure said it had Wi-Fi, but that was a lie. A big, fat one. It seemed perfect, just perfect, for getting away, for forgetting everything. We weren't alone up there. There were other people too. They arrived before us. First, there was Mark and Emily. They were couple number one. Mark had a square jaw. He looked like a military guy, all neat and serious. He stood very straight. He always folded his arms. He always stared at the door. It was like he expected something to come through it, like he was waiting for trouble. His eyes were sharp. They watched everything. Emily was totally different. She spoke very softly. Her voice was like a tiny bell. Her fingers were always nervous. They twitched and moved. She traced the rim of her coffee mug all the time, around and around, as if it would help her think. She didn't talk much, but her eyes moved everywhere. She looked at everything, like she was searching, or maybe she was hiding. I couldn't tell. Then there was Trevor. He wore skinny jeans. His coat was really puffy. It made him look bigger than he was, like a giant marshmallow. He acted like this trip was just for his Instagram page. He was always taking pictures of the snow, of his coffee, of his own face. He would pose for pictures even when it was serious, even when things got bad. And Lisa, she was beautiful, really beautiful. She was a nurse from Chicago. She had a sharp tongue. Her words could cut, but they were often funny. She said she wanted peace and quiet for once. She said it like she meant it, like she really needed it, like she had been through a lot and just wanted to breathe. We were all so stupid, so blind. We were even happy that first night. We drank hot chocolate. It was warm and sweet. We laughed about how cold it was outside. The fire popped and hissed. It made long shadows dance on the walls. I remember Stella brushing her hand against mine. It was under the table. Just a soft touch. That little touch was a flicker, a tiny spark. It was a flicker of the woman I fell in love with, the woman I was losing. It made my heart ache. Just a little. We played cards. We told silly stories. We felt safe. Like the cabin was a big, strong hug. No one looked worried. No one looked scared. We were just people. People trying to escape something. We didn't know we had walked into a trap. The first sign that things were wrong was the footprints. They were there the next morning, in the snow, about 20 yards from the cabin's porch. Our breath made white clouds in the cold air. The sun was just peeking up. They were bare feet, not boots. Bare feet, in freezing snow. No one talked about it. Not really. We all just pretended it was nothing big. Like it was normal, like it made sense. We looked at each other, then we looked away. Maybe someone went out for firewood. Maybe they didn't wear boots. That sounded like a good reason, right? A silly mistake. But they were wrong. The footprints were big, huge even. They looked like they had hard skin, like thick leather, almost like an animal's foot. But they were clearly human-shaped, just too big, and ugly. The way they walked was wrong. It was like the owner of those feet didn't know how to walk anymore, like they forgot how, or didn't want to, like they were dragging. It was strange, really strange. My stomach felt a little cold. That night I heard it for the first time. It was a whistling sound, a slow, tuneless whistle. It came from far away, then closer. The wind carried it. It sounded like a sad song for a funeral, like someone was grieving. There were long pauses, just silence, then sharp bursts of sound. It was almost playful, like someone was playing a game, a dark game. No one else said they heard it. I asked them, "Did you hear that?" They all shook their heads. They looked at me strangely, like I was hearing things. I started to think I was imagining things. My mind was playing tricks. I walked around the cabin, checking the windows. My breath made fog on the glass. The sound seemed to be everywhere. It moved, from one side to the other. It played with me, like a cat plays with a mouse. I felt like it was watching me, but I saw nothing, only snow, falling thick and white. The next morning, the air in the cabin felt thick. It was heavy with unspoken fear, like a blanket of dread. It pressed down on us. We ate breakfast in quiet. The only sound was forks scraping plates. Nobody met anyone's eyes. We all knew something was off. We just didn't say it. I kept looking at the door, thinking about those footprints, wondering who made them, and why they were barefoot, why they were so strange. Stella clung to me a bit more. Her hand felt cold in mine, even by the fire. Her fingers trembled a little, a tiny tremble I could feel. Emily kept looking out the window, her face pale. Her eyes were wide, like she expected to see something out there, something bad. Mark stared into his coffee cup. He stirred it slowly. His jaw was tight. He was usually so strong, but even he seemed worried. His shoulders slumped. Trevor was on his phone. He typed fast. He tried to find a signal again. He walked from window to window, but it was useless. He just kept sighing, loud, dramatic sighs. He kept mumbling, "No service." Lisa tried to make jokes, but her jokes fell flat, like dropped stones. No one laughed. We just looked at her. Her smile died. The whistling came back that night. This time, it was louder, much louder. It seemed to float right outside my window, like it was hanging there. I pulled the curtain back just a little, a tiny crack. I saw nothing but trees and falling snow, still, always falling. It looked pretty, but felt scary. But the sound was clear. It was close, so close, I could almost feel it. I pulled the curtain closed again, fast. My heart jumped. I hoped it would go away if I didn't look, if I didn't see it. It didn't. No, it just seemed to get closer. The sound filled my ears. It stopped right outside the wall. I held my breath. My chest hurt. My heart beat like a drum, a fast, loud drum. Then, just as quickly as it came, it moved away, fading into the snow, like it was playing a trick, a cruel game. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. The dark room felt huge. I could not sleep. Every creak of the cabin, every gust of wind. I knew what I heard. I knew I wasn't crazy. Something was out there, and it knew we were here. It knew. The next morning, Mark went missing. We knew it right away. His bed was empty, flat and cold. His boots were still by the door, untouched, like he just vanished. Emily let out a small cry, a tiny broken sound, like a hurt bird. She looked at us with wide, scared eyes, full of tears. We went outside. The air was cold on my face. The snow was untouched. The snow had covered everything again. It was like a fresh white blanket, smooth, perfect, hiding everything. But we found his flashlight first. It was half buried in the snow. Its light was off. It looked lonely. It was still warm in the handle, like he had just dropped it, seconds ago, like he was right here, then not. Next was the streak of red. You know what kind of red? It was dark and sticky. It stood out against the white. It led out past the tree line, into the dark woods, like a terrible path. There were no drag marks, just the red streak, just footprints again, bare feet, heavy, pressed deep into the powder, each one a perfect shape, so clear. It was like something large was stepping carefully, like it didn't want to mess up the snow too much, like it was proud of its work or playing a quiet game. Trevor wanted to go after him. "He's military," Trevor snapped. His voice was too loud. "He can handle himself." He sounded brave, but his voice shook. It broke a little. Emily just kept whispering, "It's not right." She held her hands to her mouth. Her eyes were full of tears. She swayed back and forth, like a tree in the wind, lost and afraid. Lisa loaded the fireplace with more logs. She stacked them fast. She stared at the door. It was like she knew it would betray her, like it was a thin paper wall. Her face was grim. Her hands moved fast. She didn't say a word, but her fear was clear. It filled the room. We sat inside. The fire crackled loud. It tried to fill the silence, but the silence was too big. It was full of what we didn't say, full of unspoken horror, full of what we felt. We all knew Mark was gone. We knew it deep down, in our bones. The hours dragged on. Each minute felt like an hour, each second like a lifetime. We kept listening, listening for anything, a shout, a sound, but there was nothing, only the wind. It whistled low and mournful. The wind howled outside. It sounded like a lost ghost. It made the cabin shake. We jumped at every little creak. Every shadow made us flinch, like scared rabbits. Our eyes darted around the room. Stella held my hand tight. Her fingers were ice cold. Her grip was strong. She didn't speak either. Her lips were pressed together. We just sat there, waiting for the worst. And the worst came. That night, we heard Mark screaming. It came from the woods. It was a terrible sound. It tore through the night, not like an animal caught in a trap. This was words, real words. His voice was full of terror, pure, raw fear. It was not human anymore. It was the sound of a person breaking, of all hope gone. We didn't go out there. None of us moved. We were frozen, like statues, like we couldn't breathe, couldn't think, because after the scream stopped, the whistling came back. It was the same tune, slow and sad, like a lullaby. But it was different now. It felt like it was mocking us, like it was happy, like it had just won, a cruel victory song. And then the laughter, low, gurgling, wet laughter. It sounded like water moving in a throat, or thick mud. It was the sound of pure evil. It was not human laughter. It was something else, something old and hungry, something that had lived a long time in the dark. It came from the woods, and it was getting closer. We huddled together, Stella and Emily and Trevor and me, close, close. The fire was our only comfort. Its heat felt small, but even that felt weak. Like a dying ember, the laughter floated around the cabin. It played with the wind. It seemed to come from everywhere, from the walls, from the ceiling, from under the floor. We pressed ourselves against the walls. We held our breath. We tried to disappear, to shrink into nothing, to become part of the wood, but we couldn't. We were trapped, and something was out there, something that laughed at our fear, something that wanted us. The night went on and on. We didn't sleep, not a wink. Every rustle, every snap of a twig made us jump. Emily cried softly. Stella just held my hand tighter. Trevor mumbled to himself. His face was pale. The laughter came and went, sometimes far, sometimes right outside the window. It was playing with us, like toys, like we were just sport. When the sun finally tried to shine, it felt like a lie. The cabin was dark, dark with the screams of last night, dark with the echo of that terrible laughter. It clung to the air. There were more footprints. They circled the cabin now, close. They were playing, taunting us, like a monster's dance. They walked right up to the porch, to the front door, and someone left a bone there, on the porch steps. Not from an animal. No, it was too straight, too clean. It looked like a human arm bone, a radius or ulna maybe, smooth and white, like it had been cleaned. Stella turned green. Her face went pale. She ran to the sink. She got sick. Loud, painful sounds. My stomach twisted. My hands shook. This was real. It was happening. Trevor lost it then. He jumped up. "We need to go now," he snapped. His voice was sharp, full of panic. He paced the floor. "Storm be damned." He sounded desperate. He didn't care about the snow anymore. He just wanted out, to run, to flee. Emily just kept whispering that same phrase. "It's not right. It's not right." Her voice was barely there. She sat in a chair. Her eyes were empty. She looked like a ghost already, like part of her had died. Lisa stood by the window. She stared out. Her face was hard. Her jaw was clenched. She looked like she was trying to figure something out, trying to find a way out, a way to fight. We talked, we yelled. Our voices were raw, full of fear. We had to try, we had to leave. We couldn't stay here. We agreed to try at first light. We would pack what we could, fast. We would just run as far as our legs could take us. We didn't make it. That night, the whistling started again. It was closer than ever. It was right outside the windows. It felt like it was inside. We heard soft thuds against the walls, a gentle bumping, like something big was walking around, testing the cabin, patting it, looking for a weak spot. It was playing. Then, we found Lisa's room empty. The door was ajar, swinging open slow. Her bedsheets were thrown back, cold and messy. There was a smear of dark blood on the window ledge. It was thick, like paint, blackish red against the white frame. And outside, more footprints. 2 sets now. One was the familiar bare, heavy print, huge, deep. The other was smaller, Lisa's size, fainter. It was like she had been dragged or carried. My blood turned to ice. A cold, heavy dread settled in my gut. This wasn't a game anymore, and the whistling, always the whistling. It seemed to have a new sound now, a happy sound, a satisfied sound, like a child humming after a good meal. It chilled me to the bone, to my very soul. By the 3rd night, it was just me, Stella, Trevor, and Emily. The cabin felt huge. It felt empty. Too many rooms. We sat close together, on the big couch, huddled up. No one spoke. We just listened to the storm. The wind howled loud. We listened for it. For the whistling. For the laughter. Emily finally told us what she knew. Her voice was just a whisper. Like a secret. A terrible secret. It was barely audible. She sounded like she was telling a bedtime story. But it was a nightmare. "He's real," she whispered. Her eyes were fixed on the door. "They call him Jacob Voss." The name hung in the air. Her eyes were wide and teary. She looked right at me, like she needed me to believe her, like she was begging me. "He used to be a ranger here, a long, long time ago. He lived in these mountains. He knew them well, like his own backyard. He had a wife. He had kids. They were his whole world, everything. He loved them so much, more than anything. They were his reason." She paused, took a shaky breath. Stella put her hand on Emily's arm, a small comfort. Then a big company came. They wanted to build a ski resort. A fancy one, with hotels and shops. Emily's voice grew fainter. They took his land. They didn't care about his family. They built over everything. Over his home. Over his memories. They tore it all down. His wife and kids. They died because of it. A terrible accident, on the new road. He blamed everyone. Her voice was full of pain. He blamed the tourists, the vacationers, the outsiders, anyone who came here to ruin his home. Emily swallowed hard. He went feral. That means he went wild, like an animal. He lives in the woods now. People say he eats them, the outsiders. And he loves the hunt. Her voice dropped to nothing. He loves to chase them down. Trevor laughed. It was a short, sharp sound, like a cough. But it wasn't funny. Not at all. His eyes were wild, panicked. He looked around the cabin, like a trapped animal. "I don't care if it's Bigfoot's cousin. We're leaving." He stood up, fast. He grabbed his puffy coat. He was shaking. His hands fumbled with the zipper. He was breathing hard. "I'm not staying here to be eaten," he mumbled. "I'm not." He walked to the door, fast, like he was running from a ghost. He didn't look back. He didn't wait for us. He just pulled the big wooden bar away. The cold air rushed in, like a giant sigh. It filled the cabin. We watched him step into the snow. His boots crunched loud on the fresh powder. Each step seemed to echo. His red beanie bobbed, bright red. It was a bright red dot in the white world, getting smaller. He stormed into the storm. He didn't hesitate. He was just running, running from the truth, running from fear. He made it about 30 feet. He was almost out of sight, just a blurry red dot. Then something moved in the whiteout. It was fast, like a shadow. It was big, too big. It didn't look human, not anymore. It was too wide, too dark, broad shoulders, like a bear, hair matted like wet fur. It moved like a beast, fast and low, like it was gliding. Its eyes, they reflected amber in the flashlight beam that Trevor carried, like a cat's eyes in the dark. They glowed, They were evil. They held a cold, hungry light. They were watching. The last thing I saw of Trevor was his red beanie. It fell into the snow, a bright red spot, standing out. Then, a spray. Like someone popped a bag of red paint. A quick, violent burst. It was quick. It was silent. No screams this time, no sounds. Just the sudden splash of red. Then, nothing. Only the howling wind and the falling snow, covering everything up. We pulled the door shut, fast, slammed it closed. We pushed the heavy wooden bar back into place. Its cold weight felt small. Emily sobbed, her body shook, her shoulders hunched. Stella held my hand. She squeezed it so tight. Her grip was painful, like it was the only real thing left in the whole wide world. We backed away from the door, slow steps. Our eyes were fixed on it, waiting, just waiting for the next thing. That's when the whistling started up again. This time, it was right outside the door. It was slow. It was tuneless. It was mocking. A terrible tune. And then, another sound joined it. A different whistle. It was a football whistle, a loud, sharp blast, like a referee starting a match. Peep, clear and sharp. So close. It wasn't a coincidence. It was a signal. He was playing with us. We were his last players, the last ones in his game. We had nowhere to go. We were trapped. And he was outside. The night stretched on. Every minute was agony. Every breath hurt. We heard him moving, scraping against the walls. A low grind, trying the windows. A gentle tap, then a hard push. He knew where we were. He was just enjoying it, playing his game. He was savoring the moment, like a predator with its prey. Then, the thumping started. Slow, heavy, against the door. A steady beat. The wood groaned. Splinters flew. Small pieces of wood. We heard soft laughs, wet laughs, gurgling, like he was eating something. The thumping got faster, harder. The door began to crack. A long, jagged line, like a spiderweb. It spread fast. I felt a cold rush of air. The freezing wind blew in. He was coming in. There was no stopping him. When he finally broke through, it wasn't a roar. It was singing. He was singing some children's lullaby, soft and sweet, like he was tucking his kids into bed. Hush, little baby, don't say a word. The sound was soft. It was sweet. But it was the most terrifying sound I had ever heard. It filled the room, made my skin crawl. It was wrong. He stepped inside. He was huge, taller than the door. His eyes still glowed, those amber eyes, like embers in the dark. His clothes were torn. Rags hung from his body. Matted fur covered his skin. He looked like a monster, a dark shape against the snow. He smelled like dirt and blood and something wild, something ancient. My breath hitched. My throat closed up. I couldn't speak. He looked at Emily first. She was frozen. Then at Stella. Her face was white. And then at me. His gaze held me. His face was grim, hard. His smile was wide. It was not a happy smile. It was a hunter's smile, a cold, cruel grin. Stella didn't hesitate. She was brave. She lunged forward. The poker swung. A heavy iron bar. It whistled through the air. She hit him hard. Right in the chest. The iron clanged against him. A loud, hollow sound. He barely flinched, not even a blink. He just swayed a little, like a big tree in the wind. Then he lunged for Stella anyway, so fast, too fast, like a blur. I screamed. A raw sound. I grabbed the oil lamp. It was hot in my hands. The glass was warm. I didn't think. There was no time. Just instinct. I threw it. I aimed for his face. It hit the log wall behind him, smashed against the wood. Oil sprayed out. Fire roared up the log walls. The dry wood caught fast. Flames licked high, orange and red, bright and hot. It worked. For a moment. Jacob reeled back. He stumbled. He howled, a sound of rage, pure, animal rage. Part of his beard was ablaze. Little flames danced. The smell of burnt hair and scorched leather filled the air, thick and choking. It made my eyes water. He stepped back. He looked surprised. He looked angry, like a bear poked with a stick. He was a wild animal, but he was still coming. He was still coming for Stella. His eyes were still on her. He wanted her. I hit him with everything I had. The poker, my fists, my feet. God, I hit him until I thought my hands would break, until my arms ached. I pushed Stella behind me. I just kept hitting. Anything to stop him, to slow him down. The fire was growing, getting bigger, higher. Smoke filled the cabin. It stung my eyes, made them water. Stella grabbed my arm. "Adam, we have to go," she yelled. Her voice was tight, full of panic. She pulled me hard. Emily was already running for the back door. She threw it open. We fled into the woods. The cold bit at us. The cabin burned behind us, a roaring bonfire. The heat was on our backs. The smoke stung our eyes, but we didn't stop. We just ran. Through the deep snow, through the dark trees. Branches whipped at our faces. Snow flew into our eyes. I don't remember how long we ran. Hours? Days? It felt like forever. Like we were running through a dream. A bad dream. My legs ached. Every muscle screamed. My lungs burned. The cold bit at my skin. Sharp little teeth. It hurt. All I remember is the sound of whistling behind us. It drifted through the trees, like smoke from that fire. Faint at first, then closer, then faint again. He was still playing, still chasing, still there. He wasn't tired. Not like us. He was a machine. We ran until the cabin was a small, red glow far behind us, like a dying star. We ran until the whistling faded, or maybe we just got too tired to hear it, too numb. We collapsed in a heap, Stella, Emily, and I, under a thick pine tree. Its branches hung low, offering a little shelter. The snow was cold. It seeped into my clothes, but it felt better. Better than the burning cabin, better than his presence. We lay there, gasping for air. Our bodies shook, like leaves in the wind, shaking from cold, shaking from fear. The silence was huge. It was heavy, full of unspoken things. It was broken only by our ragged breathing, our gasps. Emily started to cry again, soft, broken sounds, little whimpers, like a wounded animal. She wrapped her arms around herself. Stella just stared at the sky. Her eyes were empty, glassy, like she saw nothing, felt nothing, just blank. I looked back. The glow of the fire was gone. Only darkness, just the tall, dark trees and the falling snow. We didn't know where we were going. We just knew we had to go, to keep moving, to get away. We walked all night, through the storm. The snow fell steady. Our feet were numb, frozen blocks of ice. Our faces were frozen, stiff and cold. But we pushed on, one step after another, just kept walking, putting one foot in front of the other. We found a small old road at dawn. It was covered in snow, almost hidden, like a forgotten path. We followed it, hoping it would lead us somewhere, anywhere safe, away from here, away from him. Hours later, we saw a distant light, a small town. The lights twinkled, like little stars. It looked like salvation. We didn't speak, we just looked at each other. A silent promise, a promise to survive, to remember. We would never forget this. Never. We would never be the same. The town felt like another world. Warm, safe, busy. We told our story. They looked at us strangely, with pity. They said it was the cold, said we imagined things. They never found his body. Not Jacob's, or the others. Mark, Lisa, Trevor. All gone. Just swallowed by the snow. Just the blackened timbers of the cabin, and those same barefoot prints in the ash. Like he had walked right out of the fire, like nothing could touch him, like he was part of it all. It's been months since that night. The world is different now. Stella doesn't talk about it. Not a word. Not ever. She rarely smiles now. Her eyes look far away, like she's still in the woods, still running, still scared. Our fire is just ashes now. Emily doesn't return my calls. She moved away, far away, to a place with no mountains, no snow, no trees. I try to reach out. I leave messages, long ones, but she never calls back. Never. The phone stays silent. I guess she just wants to forget, to live a normal life again, to build a new world, without the shadows. I was the one who unlocked the door. Not for the thief, I was just the night security at the Midtown Historical Museum. My job was simple, really. It was lonely work, mostly. Just me and the echoes in the big, quiet building. Every night felt long. The city outside was a buzzing hum, but inside, it was like time stood still. My breath was often the loudest sound. I wore polished shoes, an ironed uniform, a keycard around my neck. The smell of stale coffee always seemed to cling to me, and boredom felt sharp enough to cut glass. Sometimes I'd chew on the inside of my cheek just to feel something. My thoughts would wander to silly things, like what kind of sandwiches the old pharaohs ate. My flashlight was my best friend, shining a path through the dark rooms. The quiet hum of the old air conditioning was the only sound I heard most nights. It felt like the museum was breathing, a slow, dusty breath. Every now and then, a gust of wind would rattle a window, making me jump, even though I knew it was just the wind. Every night was the same, a quiet patrol through silent halls. I didn't know what I was letting in that night, not really, not until it was too late. I was just doing my job, punching the clock, dreaming of my warm bed. If I had known, I would have called in sick. I would have run far, far away. The air in the museum always felt old, heavy with history. Every creak of the floorboards echoed in the quiet. My flashlight beam danced over ancient artifacts, casting long, shifting shadows. These shadows seemed to twist and stretch, like they were alive, whispering old tales I couldn't quite hear. Sometimes I'd stop and just stare at the old things. A dusty sword, a cracked pot, a piece of cloth from a king's robe. I'd imagine the hands that held them, the lives they touched. It felt like touching ghosts sometimes, a strange cold feeling on my fingertips even through my gloves. I often thought about how many eyes had looked at these things before me. Kings, queens, maybe even curses. Who knew? The museum was a place for secrets, I guess. Secrets hidden in plain sight, waiting for someone to notice them. I never thought one of those secrets would jump out and grab me. The amulet, that cursed thing, it sat in the Egyptian Antiquities exhibit. It was just behind a velvet rope inside a thick, room-temperature glass case. It had its own little spotlight, making it gleam a bit. But most people just walked right past it, looking for the bigger, shinier stuff. A little brass plaque sat underneath it, shining faintly in the dim light. It read, "The Amulet of Anpu, Protector or Punisher." I'd always scoffed at that. Punisher? Sounded like something out of a comic book. Just a fancy way to make an old rock sound more exciting, I figured. It didn't look like much, just a dark, smooth stone shaped like a crescent moon. It had strange markings carved into its surface, lines and dots that seemed to twist and squirm. They looked like tiny snakes, or maybe just weird writing. They didn't make any sense to me, just squiggles on a rock. They said it was recovered from a forgotten tomb near Luxor, a place deep in the desert. It had been carefully catalogued, valued at a high price, and photographed countless times. It had a long history, they said, a journey through many hands, but they never talked about what those hands felt. But no one believed the old stories. Not the big fancy museum bosses, not the smart history professors. They just thought it was a cool old rock, nothing more. They thought it was just a piece of history, nothing alive about it. They were very, very wrong about that. It was more alive than anything I had ever seen. I saw the guy on the security feed before I heard the alarms blare. He moved like a shadow, quick and silent, dressed all in black. He seemed to glide through the hallways like he wasn't even touching the floor. Too quiet for a normal person, it felt strange, like watching a ghost move. He wore a black hoodie, cargo pants, a ski mask covering his face, and gloves on his hands. He looked like a professional, someone who knew what they were doing. Or maybe, I thought later, just someone who was really, really desperate. His movements had a frantic edge, even through the calm. He didn't waste any time getting to the amulet. He went straight for it, like he already knew where it was, like he had a map in his head, or a powerful magnet pulling him. He didn't even glance at the gold statues or the diamond necklaces, just that one dark stone. He smashed the glass with a crowbar, a loud jarring sound that made me jump. It echoed through the empty museum, sharp and sudden, ripping the quiet into pieces. It sounded like a gunshot, ringing in my ears, making my heart leap into my throat and stay there. He snatched the amulet in one swift movement. His hand closed around it fast, like a hungry bird grabbing a worm. He pulled it out of the case like it was nothing, just a souvenir magnet from the gift shop, like it held no power, no ancient secrets, no danger at all. I ran as fast as I could. My keys jingled at my hip, and my heavy shoes thudded on the marble floors. Each step was a desperate beat. My heart was pounding in my chest, a frantic drum. I felt a cold dread creeping up my neck, telling me something was terribly wrong. I saw him just as he was disappearing around a corner, a flash of black against the pale walls. My legs felt heavy like I was running through water, but I pushed myself harder. The alarm was still screaming, a high-pitched wail that drilled into my brain. We didn't catch him. Not that night anyway. He was gone before I even got to the exhibit hall, just a broken glass case and a chilling draft. The air felt colder in that room, like something bad had just passed through, leaving a lingering shiver. The glass shards on the floor glinted like evil eyes. The police came, made their reports, dusted for prints. They asked me questions I couldn't answer, like where he went or why he picked that one thing. I just kept shaking my head. I didn't see much. It was all a blur. I felt useless, like I had failed at the one job I had. I went home feeling tired and empty. Another night. Another stupid break-in. I didn't think much of it then, not really. I just wanted to forget about it, to pretend it never happened, to scrub the image of that broken glass from my mind. I took a hot shower, hoping to wash away the cold fear, but I saw his face a week later. That was the first half moon, and everything changed after that night. The world twisted into something I didn't recognize anymore, something dark and terrible. My simple life was gone, replaced by a constant gnawing dread. It's a funny thing, the half moon. There are no legends about it, not like the full moon. We talk about full moons, how they make people crazy or bring out strange things. We talk about blood moons, eclipses that darken the sky and fill people with dread. But the half moon, that crescent grin in the sky, it just hangs there. It looks like something unfinished, something waiting. It doesn't get much attention, just hangs there, a pale nail clipping in the dark. But it should. Oh, how it should. It's the worst kind of moon. And that's when it started. That's when I saw him again. It was exactly 2 weeks after the theft, just like the moon. The sky was clear that night, and the half moon hung low, a watchful eye. I remember a weird quiet over the city, like it was holding its breath. I was walking home from the late shift again, the city still damp from a rainstorm that had just passed. Puddles reflected the streetlights like oil slicks on the asphalt, shimmering with strange colors. The streetlights looked fuzzy through the wet air. The city felt sleepy and still. The air was heavy, thick with the smell of wet concrete and exhaust. I was tired, counting the minutes until I could finally get to my bed. My shoulders ached from standing all night. My eyes felt gritty. I just wanted to pull my blanket over my head and sleep for a week. Then I heard something first. A sound that made my blood run cold. It was a kind of wet crunching, bones on bones, like something was breaking. It sounded like dry branches snapping, but softer, and wetter. Like something was being twisted and torn, slowly and painfully. The sound seemed to slide right into my ears, making my stomach churn. It wasn't a normal city sound, not a car or a dumpster. It was a sound that didn't belong, a sound that told me to run, to scream, to do anything but stay. But I couldn't move a single muscle. The smell hit next, and it was worse than the sound. Copper, like fresh blood, raw meat, sickly sweet, and bile, sharp and sour. It clawed at my throat, making me want to gag. It was the smell of sickness and horror, a smell that would forever remind me of that night. My nose wrinkled, but I couldn't turn away. My feet felt stuck to the sidewalk. My eyes scanned the shadows across the street, trying to find the source of the terrible noise and smell. I couldn't move, no matter how much I wanted to. I was frozen stiff, a deer caught in headlights. He was hunched under a busted awning across the street, near a darkened storefront. The light from a flickering neon sign barely touched him, casting weird red and blue light on him. making him look even stranger, like something from a nightmare. He was shaking, a terrible tremor. It was the same guy. I knew him by the shape of him, even from a distance. The way his shoulders slumped, the black hoodie. There was no mistake. It was the thief, the one who stole the amulet. But he was different now, terribly different. Something had happened to him, but his arms were wrong. They looked longer than they should be, too long for a human. They stretched down to his knees, thin and bony. They looked like giant, skinny ropes, twisting and knotting. It was twisted and sickening, like his bones were bending the wrong way. His fingers were bending backwards, twisting in ways they shouldn't. They looked like broken twigs, all gnarled and bent. They flexed and jerked on their own, not under his control. It was a horrible sight, like watching a puppet with broken strings dance. Sharp, dark claws were tearing through the gloves he still wore. Little shreds of fabric fell to the wet pavement around him, dark against the damp concrete. The fabric tore easily. The claws were too strong, too sharp. They looked like they could rip through anything. His back was arching in a terrible way, his spine pushing against his skin, making the fabric of his hoodie stretch tight. It looked like it wanted to escape, to rip right through his clothes. It was like he was trying to break out of his own body, like a snake shedding its skin, but this was no natural shedding. And his face, Jesus Christ, it was splitting like wet clay, like someone had taken a knife and just dragged it right down the middle, opening him up. His skin was cracking and tearing, revealing something dark and glistening beneath. It was the most awful thing I had ever seen. His eyes were black and glossy, like marbles. They looked empty, but also full of something I couldn't name. They just stared ahead, unblinking, reflecting the flickering neon lights. There was nothing human left in them, just a deep, dark void that swallowed all light. His teeth were pushing through his cheeks, tearing the flesh. I could see the sharp points of them glinting in the faint light. They were too long, too sharp. They didn't belong in a human mouth, not anymore. They were needles, tearing through his skin, blood welling up around them. I didn't even scream. My throat felt tight, locked up. I just froze, rooted to the spot, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. I couldn't make a sound. I couldn't breathe. My lungs felt like they had turned to stone, unable to pull in air. My breath hitched in my chest. I couldn't move, couldn't blink. Every part of me just wanted to run, to get away from this nightmare, to never look back. My legs felt like lead. My body would not listen. I was just a statue, watching a horror movie play out right in front of me. And he looked at me, his black eyes fixed on mine. Not with rage, not with hunger, like some wild animal. No, not even that. He looked at me with terror, pure, raw terror, like a trapped animal in a cage. He was afraid of what he had become. He was afraid of himself. He knew. Whatever that amulet carried, whatever curse it held, it owned him now, and he was afraid. His eyes screamed for help, a silent plea that cut through my own terror. It was a look I'll never forget, a look of utter, hopeless despair. It haunted my waking hours. I didn't tell anyone. Who would believe the night guard with bags under his eyes and whiskey on his breath? They'd just say I was seeing things, or that I'd had too many late nights. I knew they wouldn't understand. They would think I was crazy. And maybe I was, a little bit, after seeing that. But every 2 weeks, regular as clockwork, when the sky wore that half grin of the moon, he came out again. And bodies followed. They started showing up a few days after each half moon, always in different parts of the city. The news reports would call them unexplained deaths. They'd talk about wild animals or strange accidents, never connecting the dots. They never connected them. The police didn't see the pattern. Wrong neighborhoods, different kinds of victims, no obvious links. They thought each one was a separate thing, but I knew better. You don't forget the sound of bones moving under skin. You don't forget that wet crunch, that copper smell. It was always the same awful signature. It became my secret, my burden. I started tracking the half moon, marking it on my calendar like some terrible holiday. I couldn't just ignore it. I felt like I had to do something, even if I didn't know what. So I started watching. I started to follow him. I needed to understand what was happening. I tried to follow him once. Stupid. I know. It was late. The city asleep. I trailed him from the edge of Chinatown, hiding in the deep shadows. The streets were empty and dark. Only a few lights glowed in windows, like lonely eyes watching the night. The silence was thick, broken only by my own pounding heart. He moved like something not built for this world. He folded wrong, like his joints were backwards, slipping into shadows that didn't seem deep enough to hold him. He was too graceful, too silent, too fast. It made my skin crawl just to watch him glide like that, barely touching the ground. He was fast, too fast. I had to stay far back so he wouldn't see me, dodging behind dumpsters and parked cars. My heart was always in my throat. I was so scared he would turn around, that those black, empty eyes would fix on me. The thought made my blood run cold, chilling me to the bone. I followed him through the industrial docks, past warehouses that looked like sleeping giants. The air smelled of salt and rust, and the faint, sweet scent of decay. The wind off the water was cold, cutting through my thin jacket. It carried the smell of the sea, a harsh, lonely scent. The sounds he made were unnatural, gurgling noises, deep and wet, like something was struggling inside him. Like water trying to go down a drain, clogged and desperate. A horrible sound that vibrated in the air, a constant reminder of the torture he was enduring. But then I heard something else, something human. I heard him crying. Low, wet sobs, bubbling between teeth too sharp for speech. It wasn't a roar, not like a beast. It was a man's sorrow, a deep, heartbroken sound that twisted my gut. It was pure, raw agony. That was the worst part. Not roaring, not snarling like a monster. Just crying, like a child lost in the dark, calling for a parent who wouldn't come. It made my stomach clench. It wasn't a monster I was following. It was a man, trapped inside something horrible, begging for release. I knew he was still in there somewhere, the human part of him screaming to get out, crying for help. It broke my heart to hear it. I wanted to help him so badly, to pull him out of that living nightmare, even if I didn't know how. I felt his pain, deep in my own chest. Night after night, I patrolled the museum. Day after day, I watched the news, listening for reports. Each time, a new victim. The guilt ate at me. I was the one who was there. I was the one who saw him take it. Was it my fault somehow? It felt like it was. Like I had let this evil out into the world. I started drinking more, just to try and quiet the thoughts. But they always came back, especially when the half moon drew near. The whiskey didn't help much. It just made the pictures in my head fuzzier, the sounds louder, the smells sharper. The dread clung to me like a second skin. One night, it was the 3rd month into it. I had reached a breaking point. I got brave or stupid, take your pick. I couldn't just stand by anymore. I had to do something, anything, to stop it. The thought of another victim, another innocent person, was more than I could bear. I brought a crowbar with me. The same kind he used to smash the case, the same one he used to steal that thing. It felt heavy and cold in my hand, a rough, powerful tool. It was a bad weapon, but it was all I had. I gripped it tight, my knuckles white. I went out looking for him. The city felt cold and empty, the streets like dark rivers. My heart pounded against my ribs like a trapped bird, trying to beat its way out. Every shadow looked like him, waiting. Every sound made me jump, a sudden gasp of fear. I found him crouched in an alley behind an abandoned bakery. The smell of stale bread and decay hung in the air, thick and sickening. Broken crates were piled up, leaning precariously. The ground was slick with garbage and foul-smelling puddles. He was a dark, hunched shape in the gloom. He was shaking like a sick dog, his skin shifting and rippling like there were worms underneath it. It was sickening to watch, truly horrifying. His body was fighting itself, twisting and reforming. He looked like he was in terrible pain, a silent scream etched on his face. The amulet was still around his neck. It looked even worse now, fused to the flesh, like it had sunk hooks beneath his sternum. It pulsed with a dim, dark light, a sickly glow that seemed to absorb the little light around it. It looked angry, hungry, and terribly alive. "Take it off," I said, my voice shaking. It sounded thin and weak in the alley, a mere whisper against the hum of the city. "Let me help you, please." My voice cracked. I was so scared, but I couldn't stop myself. I had to try. He looked up at me. His head tilted in a way that wasn't human, a sharp, unnatural angle. His jaw unhinged, dropping open far too wide, stretching his face into a grotesque mask. A growl rumbled deep in his throat, a sound of pain and frustration. Then somehow, a word came out. "Can't." It was hoarse, barely a whisper, but it was his voice, the man's voice. And then he lunged. His body moved so fast, a blur of black against the gray brick. I barely had time to react, to raise the crowbar in defense. He was on me in a second. I don't remember much about the fight. It was a blur of terror and pain, just flashes in my mind, like a broken film reel, metal hitting bone, the sickening thud as my crowbar connected with something hard. His claws, sharp and black, opening my shoulder like a zipper, a searing pain that made me gasp. It felt like fire, ripping through my flesh, like my arm was being torn off, separating from my body. My own scream, raw and terrified, echoed between the brick walls of the alley. It sounded like a stranger's voice, full of pure fear, a sound I had never made before. I swung the crowbar wildly, fueled by pure survival instinct. I wasn't trying to kill him, just to get him off me, to make the pain stop. I just wanted him to stop, to make it all stop. I thrashed and kicked, desperate to escape his grasp. Somewhere in the struggle, amidst the flailing limbs and the desperate grunts, I knocked the chain loose. It snapped with a small sound, almost a whisper. The amulet fell free, dark and heavy. My eyes, even through the pain, followed it as it fell. The amulet clattered onto the wet concrete with a sharp metallic sound. It skittered across the grimy ground, stopping near my foot, a dark crescent against the muck. It looked small and harmless lying there, but I knew it wasn't. I knew its true, terrible nature. And that's when I saw the real horror. It wasn't his twisted face, or his unnatural limbs, or his terrifying strength. It was what was underneath the amulet. His chest cavity was hollow, like it had eaten him from the inside, leaving nothing but a shell. Just bones and sinew clinging like old, dusty cobwebs inside his chest. It was an empty shell, like a puppet with no life inside. There was nothing left inside him, just empty space, a void where a human heart should have been. The amulet had consumed him. The transformation finished right then, right in front of me. The last flicker of humanity in his eyes faded, like a dying candle flame. The fear was gone. The pain was gone. Only a terrible blankness remained. A cold, predatory gaze. He was truly gone now. And whatever was left of the man, the human part, Daniel Mercer, it slipped away. Gone. Nothing left but something shaped like hunger, a pure, cold evil. The light left his eyes. He was completely gone, swallowed whole by the curse. My heart sank, heavy as lead. It snarled at me, a guttural sound that shook the air, making the alley walls vibrate. Its eyes were pure black now, no fear left in them, only a deep, ancient malevolence. It was a monster. There was no man left, only the thing the amulet had made him. I should have run. My body screamed at me to run, to get away from this nightmare, to never look back. My muscles tensed, ready to bolt, but I didn't. Instead, I picked up the amulet. It felt cold, heavy in my trembling hand, a strange pull, like a magnet to metal. It felt like it was calling to me, a deep, silent hum, like it belonged to me now. A horrible, undeniable sense of ownership. You see, I thought, maybe foolishly, maybe desperately, that I could reverse it. I could take it back, undo the damage it had done. I could return it to the museum, put it back in its glass case, seal it away, lock it up forever, destroy it somehow, smash it into dust. I didn't know ancient things don't work like that. They don't just let go. They don't have an off switch. They sink their roots in deep. They don't want to leave. I got away that night, barely. My shoulder was bleeding hard, soaking my shirt. My ribs ached with every breath, a dull, constant throb. I stumbled home in a daze, the city lights blurring around me. I felt like I was moving through thick mud, every step an effort. The pain was everywhere. 20 stitches in my arm, fractured ribs, and nightmares that don't leave when you wake up. Nightmares that followed me into the day, lurking at the edge of my vision. I saw his face everywhere. I heard his cries in my sleep, a constant echo in the dark corners of my mind. But 2 weeks later, under that same pale crescent moon, I felt a familiar shiver run down my spine. It was a cold feeling, deep inside my bones. A warning. My breath hitched and a wave of nausea washed over me. I knew, deep down, what was coming. I felt my hands shake first, a tremor I couldn't stop, like a small earthquake starting inside me. Then my skin started to itch, an awful, deep itch, as if something was moving beneath the surface. It felt like tiny bugs crawling under my skin, but deeper, in my very flesh. It drove me crazy, made me want to tear at myself. My teeth began to ache, a dull, throbbing pain deep in my jaw, behind my gums. It felt like they were growing, pushing through, trying to burst out of my mouth. My gums felt swollen and sore, a strange, unsettling feeling. I ran my tongue over them, and they felt rough, almost sharp. And I realized the curse didn't belong to Daniel Mercer anymore. It didn't just belong to the amulet itself. It belonged to whoever touched it. It belonged to me now. My heart sank with a cold dread, a heavy stone in my chest. A chill spread through my whole body. It was happening to me. Daniel Mercer wasn't a thief by trade, not really. He was an archaeologist, a man of books and old dirt who loved digging up forgotten stories. He loved old things. He spent his life studying them, finding joy in dusty scrolls and ancient pots. He believed in history, in the past. He was a good one too, until the blacklisting, until he made some enemies, until his life fell apart around him like a house of cards. His good name was ruined. He lost his job, his life's work stripped away from him. He had nowhere to turn, no one to help. His wife had died of cancer, slow and painful. It took everything they had, all their money, all their hope, leaving him empty and broken. He watched her fade away day by day, helpless to stop it. There was nothing he could do, only watch the woman he loved disappear. It left him with a sick daughter, a little girl named Terry, who coughed and struggled for every breath. She was all he had left in the world, his only light in a sea of darkness. She was his whole reason for living, his one anchor. He couldn't lose her too. The whispers of an ancient artifact that could heal beyond science were irresistible to a desperate man like him. He heard the stories, ancient tales of impossible cures. He clung to them like a drowning man to a straw, a foolish, desperate hope in the face of despair. He was willing to do anything for her, anything to save his little girl. So he took it. He broke the law, broke into the museum, crossed every line he had ever respected. He thought it was the only way, his last, desperate hope to save the last piece of his family. He broke into the museum, believing the stories, hoping it could save his daughter. But old curses don't heal. They don't heal at all. They feed. They take everything you have, everything you are, and then they take more, until there's nothing left. They drain you dry, leaving an empty shell. His last possession besides the amulet, the one thing he still carried with him through his terrible transformation, was a small folded photograph. I found it in his pocket after he was gone, after he had become the monster. It was tucked away carefully, a precious memory. It was a picture of his little girl, Terry, smiling through missing front teeth. A happy, innocent smile, full of simple joy. She looked so full of life, so bright and carefree. It made my heart ache, knowing what her father had gone through, all for her. Now, when I wake up sweating, heart racing, I don't just feel my own nightmares. I feel his. I feel his sorrow, his endless pain, the crushing weight of his failure. I feel the ghost of his love for Terry, a love that turned him into something monstrous. I see her face in my mind, clear as day, her bright eyes, her missing teeth. I hear her laugh, a light, tinkling sound that echoes in my head, a sound of pure joy that he fought so hard to keep alive. It was the laugh of a child who didn't know evil, a sound of pure innocence. It wasn't greed that drove Daniel, it was desperation. A father's love pushed him to do something terrible, something that destroyed him. He just wanted to save his daughter. He just wanted to be a good dad, a hero in her eyes, even if it meant being a monster in everyone else's. And now that desperation, that curse, it's mine. It lives inside me now, a constant ache, a dull throb behind my ribs. It pulses in my chest. It whispers in my mind, telling me to give in, to stop fighting. It's a dark song, always humming in my ears. Some curses don't break. They don't go away. They only change hands, moving from one victim to the next, like a dark, unwanted gift. I fight it every day, every hour. I try to hold on to myself, to the Thomas I used to be, the simple night guard. I try to remember my name. I try to remember who I am, what I love, what makes me human. I write notes to myself, little reminders of who I am supposed to be, things I used to like. But the half moon calls to me, a deep, primal urge that starts to override everything else. I feel it in my bones, a deep, primal urge, like a wild animal waking up inside me. My body starts to change, slowly at first, then faster. My skin tightens, stretches, and pulls in strange ways. My muscles twist and knot beneath my skin, a painful reshaping. The itching gets worse, a frantic, uncontrollable urge to tear at my own flesh. The shaking turns to tremors, then to violent convulsions. It feels like something is trying to rip its way out of me, fighting against my very skin, like it's too small for my body. I can feel the hunger growing, a dark, gnawing thing that tries to take over my mind, blotting out all other thoughts. It wants to eat. It wants to hunt. It wants to destroy. To feel flesh tear beneath its claws. It's a cold, consuming fire that spreads through my veins. I have to fight it. I have to lock myself away, to chain myself down. I bought heavy chains, thick and cold, and I bolted them to the floor, to the stoutest beam in my old apartment. I prepare for each half moon like a prisoner prepares for his execution. But sometimes the chains aren't enough. Sometimes the beast wins for a while, and when it does, I leave my apartment, drawn by an unseen force. I walk the streets, a predator in the night. The streets become my hunting ground, my prison. If you hear bones cracking beneath the city sounds during the next half moon, stay inside. Lock your doors, double bolt them. Turn off your lights. Don't try to be brave, don't look for me. Just hide. Pray you're not found. I'll be hunting. Not because I want to, not because I enjoy it, not because I have any choice, because I have to, because the curse makes me. And I'm still trying to protect people, even like this. I'm trying to protect them from myself, from the monster I become. I don't remember what day it was when the bombs fell. The concept of time, it just melted away after the sky turned black. It could have been weeks, or maybe even months, since I last saw the sun outside. Down here, deep in the guts of the earth, days just bleed into each other. Like ink spilled into water, everything gets blurry and mixed up. There's no sunrise or sunset down here. Our bunker was one of many, a survival place. It was built a long, long time before the big war, when people still worried about things like taxes and what to have for dinner. Funny that. I ended up in Bunker Delta 4. There were 12 of us, all total. Just a bunch of random folks brought together by dumb luck, or maybe just bad luck, depending on how you look at it. When the emergency sirens screamed that last time, it felt like the world was ending. We were all pushed inside, shoved like cattle into this cold, concrete box. The heavy door clanged shut, and the noise of the world outside, it just vanished. The air inside was thick and still, like a blanket. We could still hear the far-off booms, a low rumble that shook the ground. Every time, we gripped each other, our faces pale in the dim emergency lights. No one really talked much that first week. We just sat there, listening to the world die above us. The air filter, it started its low hum, a constant, steady sound. It became the new beat of our lives. We were strangers, mostly. There was Jensen, a quiet man with kind eyes and a nervous habit of touching his thinning hair. He used to be an accountant, he said, good with numbers. Now, numbers didn't mean much. Then there was Laura, always neat, always calm. She told us she used to teach little kids how to read. Her voice was soft, like a lullaby. Even when she was scared, she tried to keep spirits up, Diaz, he was a big guy, a mechanic by trade. His hands were thick with calluses, strong hands. He grumbled a lot, but he shared his last candy bar with Jensen one day. He was gruff, but he had a good heart. The rest of us, we were just faces. A young couple, always holding hands, their eyes full of a quiet fear. An old woman who coughed a lot, her face etched with worry. A teenage boy who stared at the ceiling, dreaming of a sky he might never see again. We rationed everything, just like the rules said. Powdered eggs that tasted like sadness, gritty and gray. Moldy canned peas that made your stomach turn, but you ate them anyway. You had to. Water, oh man, water that smelled strong of chlorine, like a swimming pool in a cave. We drank it slowly, making each sip last. Every drop felt like it held all the life left in the world. The hum of the air filter was always there. It was like our own weird lullaby, always buzzing, always telling us we were still alive, just barely alive. It was the sound of our new, terrible life. That sound was our normal. It was all we knew anymore. Until the whispers started, that is. That's when things got really, really bad. It wasn't a sudden thing. It was slow. It crept in, like a cold draft under a door. At first, you'd think it was just the pipes creaking, or maybe the old metal of the bunker groaning under the weight of the earth. Jensen was the first one to say something out loud. He was always nervous, you see. He'd pace the small common room, his hands shoved deep in his pockets. He'd chew on the inside of his cheek, making it look sore. One damp morning, he stopped pacing. His eyes, they were wide and dark, like he'd seen a ghost. "You hear that?" he whispered to us. His voice was thin, almost gone. We were all just trying to eat our measly breakfast, the same dull gray mush. We looked up, our spoons halfway to our mouths. No, none of us had heard anything different. "Through the vents," he insisted, his voice a little stronger now. "I hear it. Someone talking, like a mumble, far away." His head tilted, like a dog trying to catch a faint sound. Laura put her spoon down gently. "Jensen, dear," she said, her voice calm. "It's just the hum, the air filter. It plays tricks on your ears in this quiet." She gave him a small, kind smile. Diaz just grunted. "Too much time cooped up, Jensen," he said, but his eyes were a bit wary too. He glanced at the vents, then back at his food. He didn't want to believe it. We told him he was hearing things, said it was just the machines playing tricks on his ears. He nodded slowly and even gave a weak laugh. But I saw his eyes. He had that look, you know? That look people get when they understand death isn't just a story or a movie anymore. It's real, it's right there, maybe waiting for them. It was a new kind of fear. After Jensen, others started hearing it too. It was like a terrible sickness spreading quietly among us. First, it was Laura, that calm, kind lady. She started tilting her head like Jensen did. I saw her one afternoon just sitting by herself, listening. Her brow was furrowed like she was trying to make sense of something very faint. She wouldn't look at us when we asked what was wrong. Then Diaz, the big mechanic, he was always fixing things, tinkering with the broken water pump, but even he started looking tired, looking scared. He started twitching his head like he was trying to catch a sound. He stopped trying to fix things so much. He just sat, his large hands resting on his knees. His eyes, they would roam the ceiling, then the walls, like he was looking for the source of a sound only he could hear. Soon, we were all starting to listen. We'd stop talking mid-sentence. Our eyes would drift to the dark grates of the ventilation system. The hum was still there, but now, it felt different. It felt like it was hiding something, something that wanted to be heard. We'd try to explain it away, to ourselves. "Just the wind, shifting outside," someone would say, but we knew it wasn't. After a while, the whispers became so constant. They were always there, a low, buzzing cloud of sound. None of us could really sleep anymore. Our minds just wouldn't shut off. The darkness of our sleeping quarters felt heavy with them. You'd pull your thin blanket up to your ears, but it didn't help. The sound, it seemed to come from inside your own head. And these weren't just random sounds. They were actually speaking words. It was like a mumble, garbled and hard to make out, but it was definitely voices. Whispering voices. Sometimes we would hear them laughing. It was a high, spooky sound, like dry leaves scraping on pavement in the dark. It wasn't a happy laugh. It was a laugh that made your skin crawl. It was the kind of laugh that had no joy in it, just a cold, thin echo, like someone was laughing at a very, very old joke that wasn't funny anymore, but but they couldn't stop. Other times, we would hear them weeping, a soft, sad sound, like someone crying far away. It was a sound that made your chest ache, even if you didn't know who was crying. It was the sound of deep, deep sorrow. It made you want to reach out, to comfort them. But there was no one there. Just the sound. It was like hearing pure, raw sadness floating in the air around you, touching your very bones. I really tried to stay smart about it, rational. I thought maybe it was just another bunker, close by. Maybe their radio system was bleeding through our old wires, a simple cross-frequency. That could happen. It really could. Or maybe it was something worse, I thought. Something inside us. Maybe we were all just getting sick. Psychosis, they call it. Like your mind is playing tricks on you. The radiation, it could do that. Maybe the radiation poisoning was making us all crazy, making us think we heard things, making paranoia feel like a fancy dress-up game. I really hoped that was it. I truly did. That would be easier to accept. It was better to be crazy, I thought, than to have something unknown lurking right outside our walls, something that could speak, something that lived in the dark, dirty air ducts. But the thing that truly broke me, that smashed something inside my chest, it wasn't just the sound itself. It was when I heard it, clear as day, my own name. I was lying on my cot, trying to force myself to sleep. The low mumble of the vents was doing its usual dance, and then it cut through everything, sharp and chilling. Michael. It was soft, so soft, like someone breathing right on the back of your neck in a pitch-black room. It made the hairs on my arms stand straight up. My breath caught in my throat. I lay perfectly still, my eyes wide open in the gloom. I waited, holding my breath. Was it a trick of the mind? Just the sounds twisting into something familiar? Then, the worst part. It was my wife's voice. My wife, Sarah. "Come out, Michael," she said. Her voice, so sweet and sad, just like I remembered it. Soft, like a whisper against my ear. Her voice, it carried all the love and warmth I'd lost. It filled my mind, pushing out the fear, just for a second. It made me want to stand up, to follow it, to find her. My wife. Oh, Sarah. She had been dead for 2 years already, before the bombs even fell. Liver cancer. It took her from me too soon. I closed my eyes, but I still heard her, clear as a bell. I remembered her smile, the way her hair smelled like sunshine and cinnamon, the way she'd hum a little tune when she was cooking, the tiny freckle on her left cheek, just under her eye. This voice, it knew all of that. It was Sarah. It sounded so real. And it was asking me to come out. To where? To what? My mind screamed no, but my heart ached for her. I didn't tell the others about it. How could I? They were barely holding on as it was. Their eyes were dark and hollow, their bodies thin. One more bad thing, it would break them for sure. They were all fading, you see. Their skin was pale, their lips cracked. They moved slowly, like old people, even the young ones. The life was draining out of them day by day, but inside me, something cracked apart, something really old and deep down inside. Something I didn't even know was there. Curiosity, yes, but also fear, and a terrible, heavy guilt. That guilt, it always sat with me, like a heavy stone in my stomach. I wasn't there when she passed. I was out, getting supplies, trying to keep us going. I couldn't forgive myself for that. She'd told me to go, that she'd be fine. But I knew she wasn't. And I still left. Every night, that moment played in my head. Her weak smile, her hand waving goodbye, and now her voice. It was like a cruel joke. It was a twisted nightmare. The vents had become like special tubes, carrying madness right to our ears. A personal torment, just for me. They were whispering each of our names, not just mine. They were digging up private memories, things only we knew, personal secrets, things no one else could possibly have known. Laura, the teacher, she started crying quietly in her sleep one night. She used to be a brave mountain climber, but the whispers knew her secret fear of heights. They murmured about her hanging onto a thin rope hundreds of feet up. Jensen, the accountant. He grew pale as ash. The whispers knew about his old gambling problem. They'd murmur numbers, betting odds, the names of races he'd bet on and lost everything. He'd twitch, like the sounds were little electric shocks. Diaz, the big mechanic, stopped sleeping completely. He'd just stare, his eyes wide. They whispered about his first car, a beat-up old truck, and the accident he caused, the one where his best friend got hurt. They knew every detail, every broken bone. It was like they were inside our heads, walking around, looking at everything we tried to hide, all the shame, all the regret, all the private pain. They pulled it all out for us to hear, and the worst part was, it worked. It broke us down, piece by piece. We started snapping at each other, our tempers frayed. We started talking to ourselves, answering the voices. We stopped eating sometimes, or we'd stare at our food, like we couldn't remember how to lift the spoon. The hum of the air filter, it no longer sounded like life, it sounded like a cage. One night I just snapped. I couldn't take it anymore. The whispers were a roar in my head, 1,000 voices screaming my name. Sarah's voice, so clear, begging me. "Michael, please," she said. "I'm so cold. I'm waiting for you." Her words twisted my gut. I had to know. Was it really her? Was there some impossible way? I grabbed my old flashlight, the one with the weak beam. The batteries were almost dead, but it was all I had. Then I wrapped my boots tight with duct tape, layer after layer. I wanted to be quiet, like a ghost, so I wouldn't make a sound. I wrapped a scarf around my face, pulling it up high so I wouldn't breathe in too much of that foul air. And then I went for the vent. It was a small access panel, hidden behind a stack of empty crates. We used it sometimes to check for clogs. I pulled it open slowly. The air that came out was thick and cold, like a dead breath. I climbed right into the ventilation system, like some desperate, skinny rodent trying to find a way out of a trap. My heart was pounding so hard, it hurt my ribs, like a drum beating against bone. The others stirred on their cots. They shouted. They yelled my name. "Michael, don't!" Jensen cried, his voice hoarse with fear. Laura sat up, her eyes wide, tears starting to fall. Diaz lunged, a desperate hand reaching for my leg. His face was pale and drawn, his eyes wild. But I was already half gone. My mind was made up. I had to know. I had to find out. I was swallowed by all that rust and cold metal and deep, deep darkness. The opening behind me looked tiny now, like a mouth closing. There was no turning back. Not now. I had to go forward. I had to find the answers. The air in the vent was stale and heavy, filled with the smell of old dust and something else. Something rotten, like wet earth, and something dead. It clawed at my throat, making me cough. The further I crawled, the louder those whispers got. It was like walking into a really crowded room where everyone is talking in low voices. You can't quite make out what they're saying, but you know they're talking. You can feel the sound all around you, pressing in. That's what it was like in the vents. A dizzying hum of unseen mouths, a chorus of misery growing louder with every inch I crawled forward. My flashlight, it kept flickering, like a dying firefly in the darkness. It would flash for a second, then go dim, then flash again, just enough to show me bits of the walls around me. The beam would show me rusted bolts, spiderwebs thick with dust. Then it would die again, plunging me into absolute blackness. The air was getting colder, much colder. The walls were smeared with soot like old black grease. It was thick, clinging to the metal, and there were pipes, streaked with old handprints, black and brown marks. I couldn't tell if it was burned stuff or dried blood. I didn't want to know. I tried not to think about what made those marks. I just kept crawling, pushing myself forward. My knees scraped against the rough metal. My arms ached, my shoulders burned. The air was thick, like breathing dust. It burned my throat. The whispers, they were clearer now, not just a mumble. I could hear words, fragments, Sarah's voice, drawing me on. I crawled for what felt like hours, a never-ending tunnel of cold steel and fear. My muscles screamed with every movement. My mind, it felt like it was splitting in two. Then I found it, the source, or at least what I thought was the source. I had been crawling for so long, my knees hurt, my back ached, and my lungs burned. I was exhausted, but I couldn't stop. The ventilation shaft, it suddenly opened up. It wasn't just a small tunnel anymore. It was a massive chamber, so big I couldn't see the other side in the dim, flickering light from my weak flashlight. The air here was even colder, much colder than the vents. It smelled of deep earth and something else, something very old and very wrong. My breath plumed out in tiny clouds. I didn't even know this place existed. None of us did. It was like a forgotten room, hidden deep beneath everything. It was a storage facility, I guessed, or maybe an old factory part. There were crates, stacked high, old supplies, covered in dust, waiting for a war that was already over. Boxes and barrels, shadowy shapes in the gloom, they looked like giant forgotten tombs. And then I saw them. The bodies. Oh God, the bodies. My flashlight beam found them, and I stopped breathing. My heart stopped beating, just for a second. They were desiccated, like really old, dried-up things. Mummified, like ancient Egyptian mummies, but far more awful. Their skin was pulled tight over their bones, like worn leather. Their limbs were twisted at impossible angles, broken, disjointed, like a child's discarded dolls. Their clothing was just rags, rotting, barely clinging to them. Their mouths were open wide, caught in a mid-scream, like they had all screamed at the same exact second and then froze there forever. There were hundreds of them, maybe thousands. They were tangled together, like a mess of rotted roots from an old tree, piled on top of each other, arms and legs and heads all mixed up. A terrible silent pile, reaching up towards the darkness above. Their empty eye sockets stared at me from the shadows, like they were watching my every move, even without eyes. Like they held all the pain of the world, frozen in their hollow gaze. The whispering, it got even louder in my skull. It roared now, a giant wave of sound inside my head. It was a chaotic symphony of sorrow, a hurricane of voices swirling around me. But the worst part? Oh man, the absolute worst part was this. Some of them were still breathing, barely. A tiny flutter in their chest, a faint, almost invisible movement. Their rib cages were fluttering weakly, just a tiny movement, like fish flopping around out of water, trying to breathe, trying to live for just one more second. It was sickening, truly sickening. Gasping, eyeless faces. They were mouthing words. I could see their lips moving, struggling to form sounds, but I couldn't hear anything over the loud, roaring noise in my head. Their mouths stretched wide, silent screams, their throats convulsed, trying to draw air, trying to push out sound, but only the faintest rasp came, lost in the greater noise in my ears. My flashlight beam was shaking. My hands were shaking so bad, I almost dropped it. I wanted to scream, but no sound came out. My throat was too tight with fear and horror. Then I saw it. The thing that made everything clear, the ventilation tubes. They were massive, thick metal ducts, spiderwebbing across the ceiling of the chamber, and they were leading right from our bunker, from Delta 4 all the way to this awful place, like massive metal arteries, bringing the air from here, right to us. And that's when it hit me, like a sledgehammer to the chest. The realization, it was instant and brutal. It wasn't just whispers bleeding into our vents. It was much, much worse. We were breathing in the last ragged breaths of those poor, poor people. Their dying murmurs, those last gasps, they were traveling through the airflow systems, right into our bunker. Their dying consciousness, what was left of their minds, it was seeping into our dreams. It was crawling into our thoughts. It was poisoning us, slow and painful, from the inside out. They had been trapped here, completely forgotten by whoever built this system, left to rot, alone in the dark. But they weren't entirely dead, not really, not completely. Their suffering, it kept them going, kept them alive in some horrible half-life way, just barely by the weak circulation of stale, recycled air. And we had been inhaling them. With every single breath we took, we were taking them in. Their memories, their silent screams, their deep, terrible madness. It was all becoming a part of us, twisting our minds. That's why we were all losing our minds. It wasn't just going insane, it was different. We weren't just going crazy. We were becoming them. We were becoming the forgotten. We were becoming those poor, forgotten souls. Their suffering, their emptiness, their trapped existence. It was filling us up, taking over our own minds, pushing out our own thoughts. I could feel it, the shift inside me. The memories that weren't mine, flashes of faces I'd never seen. The fears that belonged to someone else, a deep, choking dread that wasn't my own. It was like my mind was getting crowded, too full, too many thoughts, too many feelings, too many broken voices whispering from inside my own skull. Behind me, I heard another sound, a new sound, shuffling. It wasn't the dead, not quite. It was closer, a different kind of horror. My heart leaped into my throat, hammering wildly. I turned my flickering flashlight around. My hand was shaking so much, the beam danced like a frantic firefly across the dark walls of the vent. And there he was. Diaz. He was crawling through the shaft, his big body barely fitting. His face was pale, smeared with soot. His eyes were wide, wild, and staring. His mouth was open, like he was trying to say something. He was whispering, too, along with the chorus of dead voices. A low, guttural sound, not his own. It was a broken sound, filled with echo. "Michael," he mumbled. His voice was raspy, not like himself at all. It sounded like sandpaper rubbing together. They said, "You should stay." He was one of them now, or becoming one. His eyes were glazed over, but they were fixed on me. Like he was seeing me, but not really seeing me. Like I was just another ghost in his broken mind. I panicked. A raw, animal fear shot through me. I didn't think, not even for a second. My body moved on its own. I just reacted. I kicked backward, hard, with all my strength. My duct-taped boot hit him square in the chest. It sent him tumbling, falling backward out of the vent opening, into the massive, dark chamber. His head hit a metal pipe with a sick, wet crack. He slid, screaming, down into that tangled mass of bodies, the pile of desiccated horrors, and they eagerly absorbed him, like a living, hungry thing swallowing its prey. His screams, they were real, full of terror and pain, echoing in the vast chamber. But then, they changed. They joined the whispers, blending in. His individual pain was lost, and I swear to God, his voice, it entered the chorus. It was like another thread, a brand new thread, woven into a fraying tapestry of sound. One more voice in the terrible song of the forgotten. It was horrifying. I didn't wait. I scrambled back the way I came, not even looking back. My hands scraped against the rough metal, tearing my skin. My knees burned with pain. I just wanted to get out, to escape that place. But I was no longer alone. Not really. The whispers followed me. They were louder now, much more aggressive. And they were personal. They knew my deepest fears. They whispered them right into my ear. They knew about that time I was a little kid and got lost in the woods, just a tiny boy. The fear of being alone, truly alone, always haunted me. They whispered about it, about the cold night and the dark trees. They knew about my failures, every wrong decision, every time I messed up at work, every time I said the wrong thing to Sarah, a careless word, a moment of anger. They dug it all up, playing it back to me. And then, worst of all, my dead wife's voice. "Stay with me forever, Michael," she begged. Her voice, so real, so full of love, so full of longing. It tore me apart inside, shredding what was left of me. "I'm so lonely, Michael," she whispered. "Don't leave me here. Come and be with me." It was a promise, a terrible temptation. My mind screamed at me, but her voice was a siren song. I pushed myself faster, harder. My lungs were burning, my muscles screaming in protest. But the voices, they were like a physical presence behind me, pushing me, guiding me, chasing me. When I finally burst back into the bunker, gasping for air, I wasn't greeted by familiar faces. The dim lights of the bunker flickered, showing empty beds, every single one empty. Only the echoes of screams, not just from the vents, but from inside the bunker itself, from the people who used to live here with me. Jensen, Laura, the young couple, the old woman. They were gone. The others had gone insane. Or maybe, something even worse happened to them. Maybe they climbed into the vents too, drawn by the same terrible, irresistible call. Drawn to join the chorus. Now I sit here alone. The silence in the bunker is broken only by the hum of the old air filter and the whispers. They are like a hurricane of broken voices around me, inside me, everywhere. I'm scribbling all this down in the last notebook I own. The pages are thin and worn, but I have to write. I have to tell someone, even if that someone is just me, writing to myself in the dark. My hand shakes as I write. The pen scratches loudly on the paper, a small, lonely sound. My eyes burn, but I can't stop. I have to get it all out before it's too late. My breaths, they taste awful now. They taste of mold, the damp smell of old earth. They taste of rust, like chewing on old nails, and decay, like something rotten, something very old. And somewhere in that foulness, in every breath I take, I taste the memory, the taste of another person's last dying scream. It's in my mouth. It's in my lungs. It's in my very blood. I feel them inside me now, not just the whispers, but their presence, their sorrow, their endless waiting. It's like a cold weight in my chest, a heavy, sad emptiness. Soon, I'll crawl back into that shaft. I know I will. Not to escape. That's not it anymore. There's no escape from this. This is my end. This is our end. But because I can't remember where I end, I can't remember where I stop being Michael, and where they begin, those countless suffering souls. We are becoming one. My memories are fading, blending with theirs. Sarah's face is becoming a blur. Her voice is just another thread in the growing chorus, one more beautiful, sad sound in the awful symphony. I look at my hands, and they don't quite feel like mine. My thoughts are not quite my own. I hear words in my head that I didn't think, memories that aren't from my life. We're all the same breath now, every single one of us. One long, eternal exhale of forgotten souls, a never-ending gasp of sadness and pain rising from the dark. And me? I'm ready now. Ready to be inhaled. Ready to join the chorus. Ready to become part of the whisper beneath the ash. My name is Daniel Cobain, and I used to be a senior detective. I worked for the City Crimes Bureau, and I did that job for 15 years. I solved a lot of hard cases, kidnappings and money troubles and even some terrible killings. I saw the worst of people, and I saw the sadness that followed them like a dark cloud. I thought I had seen it all. I thought I knew how the world worked, and how evil showed its face in plain sight. I thought I was ready for anything at all. My job was my life, my purpose, my steady anchor in a messy world. I was good at it, too. I could read people. I could smell a lie from a mile away. My gut instinct usually told me the truth before I even had all the facts. I prided myself on that, on being tough and fair, but nothing at all got me ready for the case that almost broke me. It hurt me in ways I never thought possible. This whole thing started so small, like a tiny little ripple in a puddle after a single raindrop. It was just a short story in the newspaper. The Morning Sentinel printed it, a few lines way down on page 6. It said, "Elderly couple adopts 30, terminally ill children in just 1 month." I remember I was sitting at my kitchen table that morning. The sun was just starting to peek through the window. The smell of fresh coffee filled the air. The steam was rising up from the cup, warm and comforting on a chilly day. I was just flipping through the paper, my fingers brushing against the crisp pages. I was looking for the sports section, or maybe the local crime blotter, just the usual morning read. I saw that little story, tucked between a notice about a dog show and the weather for the week. My eyes just kind of skipped over it at first. It seemed like a nice story. No, a feel-good piece. The kind that makes you smile a little inside, a quick, gentle warmth. The kind they put there to balance out all the bad news about robberies and accidents. I thought, oh, that's sweet, and started to turn the page. But something about it just wouldn't leave my mind. It picked at me, like a loose thread on a sweater you just have to pull, even when you know it might unravel the whole thing. 30 children, all very sick. I put my coffee cup down. I read the words again, just to be sure my eyes weren't playing tricks on me. 30, not 3, not 5. 30, and these children were all terminally ill. That means they were going to die soon, very soon. and 2 old people, in their 70s, had taken them in. That seemed like a lot for anyone, let alone 2 people who were old and perhaps not so strong. It felt like a huge responsibility. The paper said they lived way out of town, in an old, creaky house. A big old house called a Victorian manor. I knew the kind. Big, dark, usually a little run down. It was one of those really old places, built a long, long time ago, with pointy roofs and towers. The kind of house that usually stands empty or gets torn down because no one wants to fix it up. It just didn't sit right with me, not one bit. It felt strange, you know, too much, too fast. My detective brain started to buzz a little, like a sleepy bee waking up and feeling restless. I usually just went with my gut feeling, and my gut was telling me this wasn't just a sweet story. It was too big, too quick. It felt off. Like a puzzle piece that didn't quite fit the picture. The internet went wild about it in just a few hours. I swear, it was faster than a wildfire spreading across a dry field. Bloggers and people who share a lot online, and those folks who think everything is a secret plan, they all had ideas. My phone started buzzing with messages from friends and even some distant cousins. "Hey, did you see this crazy story?" they'd ask. 30 kids. "What's going on in Brenton Falls?" Some said it was about stealing people. They thought the Fosters were part of a big bad group that snatched kids. They talked about secret groups that take children and sell them off to other countries. Others thought it was some kind of weird science stuff. They imagined hidden labs in the basement doing bad experiments on sick children. It was wild, truly wild and horrible to think about. Some believed it was about getting money from people who died. They thought the old couple would get rich when the kids passed away from their illnesses. They called it death money scams and inheritance fraud. And then there were the really strange ideas, like black magic groups. People said they were doing weird rituals in the house at night. They talked about sacrificing children. No, real dark stuff. The wild stories grew fast, like weeds in a garden after a heavy rainstorm. People started sharing pictures of the house online. They found old news articles about it being haunted by old ghosts. The whole thing turned into a giant, scary fairy tale for grown-ups, passed from screen to screen. 2 days later, the first child died. It was a little boy, barely 5 years old. His name was Thomas. He had a sickness that made his body very weak, so weak he could barely lift his head. I heard about it on the morning news. The reporter sounded serious, no, very serious. Her voice was low and sad. My stomach dropped a little. This was no longer just a weird internet story. It was real. By the end of that same week, 5 more children were gone. Their names were read out loud on TV, one after another, small voices echoing in the quiet room. It was heartbreaking to hear them. Their doctors said they died from the illnesses they already had. The hospital sent out official statements, saying it was all natural, part of their sad conditions. But the numbers, the numbers were just too much to ignore. It was scary, even if the reasons for death were true. 6 children in 5 days. That's a lot of little lives ending so quickly, so close together, it made your heart ache just thinking about it. The local TV news started talking about it constantly. Every hour, it seemed, there was a new report, a new update. Then the big national news stations joined in, sending their fancy trucks and reporters. Their cameras zoomed in on the quiet town of Brenton Falls. Suddenly, our small town felt like the center of something awful, something too big for us. It felt like something monstrous was happening right here, right in our peaceful little valley. The mayor had a special meeting for the news people. I saw him on TV, and he looked worried, really worried. His face was pale, and his tie seemed too tight around his neck. He wiped sweat from his forehead. People gathered outside the old house, holding signs. There were more and more of them every day. They stood in the street, yelling with angry faces, shaking their fists at the old manor. Their signs said things like "murderers in disguise" and "keep our children safe." Their voices were loud and sharp, cutting through the quiet evening air. It sounded like a baying mob. Papers were passed around online, asking for Harold and Miriam Foster to be put in jail right away. They called them the child stealers and the death merchants, saying awful things about them. Harold and Miriam, they were the old couple everyone was talking about. Their faces were all over the news, blown up on big screens, in every newspaper. They looked so tired and sad in those pictures. Because of all the pressure, my boss gave me the case. He called me into his office. His desk was piled high with papers, and he looked stressed, running a hand through his thinning hair. "Daniel," he said, rubbing his temples, "this thing is blowing up. It's making our town look bad. We need someone good on it, someone who can get to the bottom of it fast and stop the rumors." They didn't really think Harold and Miriam were criminals yet. Not exactly. My boss said it was more about public relations, about making people feel safe and showing we were doing something, but the way it looked, the way people felt, meant someone had to check it out. Someone had to go there, look around, and talk to these people face to face. It had to be a thorough investigation. He looked at me with tired eyes. "Just find out what's happening, Daniel. Is it true? Is it a scam? Or is it just a couple of crazy old people trying to do something good but doing it all wrong?" I remember my first time driving up to their house. The sky was turning purple and orange as the sun went down. The air was getting colder, and the trees seemed to lean in close. The manor looked like an old, hunched animal, maybe a giant spider. It sat there in the deep shadows of huge oak trees, its many windows staring out like empty eyes. The drive was long, winding through narrow, dark roads that I didn't know well. The trees got thicker and thicker, their branches forming a dark tunnel over the road. The air got colder, like the world was holding its breath. I felt a chill creep up my arms. The gravel crunched under my tires as I turned into their long driveway. Their branches were twisted, like old gnarled fingers scratching at the windows of the house. The pretty trim on the porch, that gingerbread kind, hung down like old, torn lace, swaying in the light breeze. It was a house from a scary movie, for sure. Dark and gloomy. The kind where shadows play tricks on your eyes, making you see things that aren't there. It felt like it was watching me as I drove closer. But something was strange. The windows were super clean, sparkling even. They caught the last bit of sunlight and shone like bright eyes in the dark house. It didn't make sense with the rest of the decay. And then I heard it. Kids laughing, a soft sound that floated out into the evening air. It was a happy sound, light and free. It made me pause, my hand still on the car door handle, ready to open it. It was the kind of sound you hear from a playground in the middle of the day, not from a creepy old manor accused of dark deeds at dusk. The laughter seemed to get caught in the branches of the old trees, making them sway gently. Harold opened the door. He was a bit bent over, kind of thin, but dressed really neatly. He wore nice pants and suspenders over a clean, pressed shirt. He looked like someone's gentle grandpa, not a monster. His eyes, they were a pale, unsettling blue. They looked right into mine, deep and calm, like he knew why I was there. Like I wasn't just any visitor, but someone important with serious questions. His gaze was steady and deep. "Detective Cobain?" he said softly. His voice was calm and even, with a gentle rasp. It didn't sound like a man hiding a big secret. There was no fear, not a hint of it. "Please, come in. Miriam is in the kitchen finishing up supper. The children who are feeling well enough to play, they are in the garden enjoying the last bit of light." I walked inside, and the house was a big surprise. It wasn't what I expected at all. I thought it would be messy, or dark, or smell bad and old. But it was so neat and tidy, no, perfectly clean. The air was warm, and it smelled like baking bread and old wood, maybe a hint of fresh flowers. It felt warm and cozy inside, like a real home, full of life and care. My boots made a soft sound on the polished wooden floor as I stepped inside. The hall was wide and welcoming. Everything was in its place. Toys were stacked up nicely in the corners of the living room. Building blocks and dolls were put away in neat bins by the fireplace. Nothing was scattered or broken. Crayon drawings, bright and colorful, were taped to the walls in the hallway. They were simple pictures of houses with smoking chimneys and bright yellow suns and stick figures holding hands. They looked just like the drawings my own niece made when she was little. Simple, innocent, full of childlike joy. This wasn't what I had imagined at all. It didn't match the bad stories I had heard on the radio on my drive over, the whispers of evil, the talk of black magic. It all felt so far away now. This house felt innocent, even loving. Miriam was a tiny woman. Her gray hair was pulled back in a neat braid, shining softly in the warm kitchen light. She wore a soft, loose sweater, and her sleeves were rolled up past her elbows. She was stirring soup at the stove, a big pot filled with something that smelled delicious and hearty. She hummed a little tune as she stirred, a soft, gentle melody. She smiled when she saw me standing there. It was the kind of smile that sad people wear, like an old, worn shirt, a smile worn by people who have been through too much pain to hide it. It made my chest feel tight, a sudden ache in my heart. Her eyes were kind, but they held a deep sadness, a sadness that settled in the lines around her eyes and the gentle curve of her mouth. It was a quiet kind of sorrow, not loud or dramatic. We sat down at a big wooden table. It was polished and smooth from years of use. Harold poured tea into pretty flowered cups. Miriam offered me biscuits, homemade ones that looked golden and smelled sweet. "Please have some, Detective," she said. Her voice was soft and gentle, like a lullaby. They were so polite, it felt like their politeness was part of them, like a warm blanket they always wore. But I wasn't there for tea and cookies. I had a job to do. I had to push past the warm feelings and the smell of fresh-baked bread and get to the hard questions. "Mr. and Mrs. Foster," I began, trying to sound firm. My voice felt rough and out of place in the quiet kitchen. I looked from Harold to Miriam, trying to read their faces for any hidden signs. "I need to ask why you took in so many children so fast. It's not normal. The people who handle kids, social services, they have questions. The police have questions. The whole town has questions." Harold nodded his head slowly, like he had been waiting for me to ask that very thing since I walked in. He looked at me with those pale blue eyes, steady and unblinking. There was no anger there. "We don't expect anyone to understand, Detective," he said quietly. His voice was soft, but steady, like a calm river flowing smoothly. "But we know what it's like to lose a child." He took a slow, deep breath. He looked at Miriam, and she looked back at him. There was a shared pain in their gaze, a quiet understanding that passed between them without words. "We lost our boy 30 years ago," Harold continued. His voice got a little thicker, a little rougher, as he spoke the words. "His name was David. He had bone cancer. He was only 7 years old." He looked away then, his jaw muscles tight, like he was holding back a sad memory, a memory that still hurt like it was yesterday. His eyes seemed to see something far away, in the painful past. "It was a terrible time," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Watching him fade away, day by day, feeling helpless. The doctors did all they could, but it wasn't enough. We felt so alone," Miriam added, her voice still quiet as she stirred the soup. "Like no one understood our pain. Like David was just another number in a hospital bed." "Hospitals are full, Detective," she continued. Her voice was quiet, like a whisper, almost lost in the soft bubbling of the soup. "And sometimes they don't have the space or the time for children who are just waiting. Places for sick people, hospices, they won't take children. These little ones, they were left all alone, forgotten by everyone. Their families couldn't handle it or couldn't afford it anymore." She looked up, her eyes meeting mine directly. "We're just giving them what we wished someone had given our boy, a home, love, and a good end to their days. A soft place to land before they go." Their eyes were steady. They looked so real, so honest, and they hurt, like a fresh wound that hadn't healed properly. They weren't asking for pity. No, they weren't. They were just stating a plain, hard truth. I wanted to believe them. I truly did. My gut was telling me they were telling the truth. But 30 children? It was just too many to wrap my head around. It felt like a story from a book, not real life at all. I thanked them for the tea and the biscuits. I promised to look into everything and be fair. As I left the house, the laughter of children still floated from the garden, light and airy. It mingled with the chirping of crickets and the rustle of leaves in the old oak trees. The air was cool, and the shadows were long and stretching. I drove away slowly, my mind spinning with conflicting thoughts. The image of Harold's sad eyes and Miriam's quiet strength stayed with me for a long time. As I dug deeper into the case, my investigation kept growing. I didn't just check the surface anymore. I went through all the papers for the adoptions. It was a mountain of documents, piled high on my desk. Miriam had worked so hard. She had gone to hospitals far away, even across state lines, traveling for days. She talked to social workers and special doctors who helped sick people feel better. She had visited dozens of places, met hundreds of people. Every paper was right. Every signature was in the right place. Every form was filled out perfectly. All the adoptions were done the way they were supposed to be, following every single rule and regulation. I called the social workers she named, one after another. They all confirmed her story. "Mrs. Foster is a saint," one told me over the phone. "These children had nowhere else to go. No one else wanted them." Still, no. The doubt just stayed with me. It felt like a cold, wet fog hanging around, making it hard to see clearly. My job was to find the truth, no matter how much I wanted to believe them. I had to be fair to the public, to all those scared parents in Brenton Falls. I had to look at every angle, no matter how painful. I talked to their neighbors. It was like two different towns lived on the same street, each with its own story. One lady named Mrs. Henderson, who lived across the street, said, "They're like angels, saints, really. They do so much good for this community." She told me Harold fixed bikes for kids for free in his garage. He never asked for a penny. He'd spend hours in his garage, putting broken bikes back together so local kids could ride them again. And Miriam, she baked cookies for charity sales every week. She organized food drives for the poor. "They're the best neighbors anyone could ask for," Mrs. Henderson said firmly, shaking her head at the rumors. But another neighbor, a man named Mr. Peterson, who lived 2 houses down, whispered to me, "I hear strange singing at night, weird sounds from the basement, like a low humming or chants, creepy stuff." He looked around nervously before he spoke, as if someone might be listening. "It's not normal, and those kids, they just appear and disappear. It's too quiet over there sometimes, then too noisy. It's just unnatural," he muttered. And then another neighbor told me, "All those kids, I don't care what you say. No good can come from something like that. It's just not natural, is it? Too many sick kids in one place." Whispers turned into rumors, and rumors turned into fear. People stood outside the Foster's house every single day, yelling. They brought bullhorns and shouted mean words about Harold and Miriam. The crowd grew bigger and angrier. The police had to put up fences to keep them back. They had to put officers on patrol 24 hours a day just to control the crowd. The noise was constant, a low roar of anger and fear. People spat on the ground when the Fosters came out onto their porch to get the mail. They threw rotten eggs at the windows, leaving slimy streaks. It was ugly, truly ugly. It was like the whole town had turned against them, even without proof. They were judged before I even found anything, condemned by the fear of the unknown. I spent weeks checking everything, every detail, every name on every document, every hospital she visited. I looked for any tiny crack in their story, any little lie that would unravel the whole thing. But I found nothing, absolutely nothing that pointed to wrongdoing. The frustration was building inside me. My boss was pushing for answers. The media was pushing for a big reveal. The public was screaming. And I had nothing, absolutely nothing to tell them. Just a lot of paperwork and a growing sense of unease that the real monsters might not be inside that house. One night, around 2 a.m, my phone rang. The sound cut through the quiet of my apartment like a knife, sharp and sudden. My heart jumped into my throat. It was an anonymous tip. The person's voice was low and shaky, barely a whisper. They sounded scared, terrified, like they were hiding in a closet. "Check the basement," they said quickly. Their voice cracked. "That's where they keep them. That's where the bad stuff happens. You'll find what you're looking for there." And then the line went dead. My heart started to beat faster, a heavy drum in my chest. This felt like a real lead, finally. It was specific. It was dark. It was what everyone was fearing. It was the break I needed. I jumped out of bed, adrenaline surging through me. My mind was racing. This was it. This was the moment I would either prove them innocent or expose them as monsters once and for all. I got a special paper from the judge, a warrant. It wasn't hard to get, given all the public pressure and the new tip. I woke up the judge, explained the urgency, and I went back to the house. This time, police officers were all around the manor. Their cars lined the street, red and blue lights flashing in the dark, painting the old house in an eerie, pulsing glow. The protesters were gone for the night, but their presence still hung in the air, like a bad smell. The police stood stiff and serious, their faces grim and watchful. Harold opened the door. He was just as calm as always, even though a bunch of cops were standing on his lawn, ready to search his home from top to bottom. His pale blue eyes looked at me, still steady. There was no fear in them, not even a flicker of worry, just a deep sadness that seemed to live there, a permanent shadow. "You'll find no chains here, Detective," he said simply. His voice was quiet, almost sad, like he was apologizing for something that wasn't his fault, for all the trouble. He led me through the quiet house. The crayon drawings on the wall seemed to watch us as we passed. The neat stacks of toys felt like they were holding their breath, waiting. We went to a door near the back of the kitchen. It was old wood, dark and heavy. The air suddenly felt colder around it, like a draft from a dark place. The basement door opened with a slow, low creak. It sounded like the gate to a hidden burial place, heavy and final. The sound echoed in the quiet house, making the silence even deeper. I walked down the steps first. Each step groaned under my weight, old wood complaining. The air got heavier and cooler with every step down. It smelled like damp earth and something else, something faint, like medicine and clean linens. What I found down there wasn't scary, not at all. It was just heartbreaking. My breath caught in my throat, a gasp I couldn't stop. It wasn't what anyone expected. The basement was not dark. It was softly lit by warm lamps hanging from the ceiling. It wasn't a dungeon. It was a space transformed, bright and welcoming. Rows of small beds were lined up neatly. They were hospital beds, the kind you see in clean, bright rooms. But they were covered with soft, colorful blankets in patterns of stars and animals. Each one looked like a tiny haven, a safe, cozy place. On each bed was a soft, stuffed animal, a teddy bear with one eye, a floppy-eared bunny, a worn-out dog. They looked like cherished friends. There were ivy drips, the kind that give medicine slowly, hanging from tall stands beside each bed. They were set up by hand, but so carefully, so perfectly, that they looked professional. The clear tubes ran into small, frail arms. The bed sheets were clean and white, pulled tight and smooth. Pictures of each child's family were framed. They sat on small shelves right by their beds. Happy faces looked out from the frames, smiling from another time, and medical supplies were stacked up in neat piles on tables along the walls. Boxes of bandages, bottles of medicine, sterile wipes. Everything was organized, ready for immediate use, clearly labeled. It wasn't a dark prison. It wasn't a dungeon. It was like a hospital room, but made at home with endless love. A place where very sick children were cared for with a tenderness I had never seen. The other officers came down behind me. I heard their hushed whispers. Their footsteps grew soft and slow as they took in the scene. They too seemed stunned by what they saw. One officer, a big man named Miller, took off his hat. He stood there, looking around with wide eyes. I saw tears in his eyes, real tears, as he stared at the little beds. I stayed there much longer than I should have that night. The other officers finished their search. They found nothing to arrest the Fosters for, nothing out of place. I sat beside a tiny girl named Lila. She had a sickness that made her bones break easily, like they were made of glass. She looked so fragile, so delicate. Her hair was thin and wispy, like dandelion fluff caught in a gentle breeze. Her skin was pale, almost translucent. She was very small, even for a 5-year-old. She turned her head slowly on the pillow. Her eyes were sunken in, but they shone with something I hadn't expected. Peace. A deep, quiet peace that felt out of place for someone so ill. She saw me sitting there, watching her. Her hand moved a little, a tiny gesture. I gently took it in mine. Her grip was weak but firm, surprisingly strong for such a frail child. "Mr. Harold says I don't have to be afraid here," she whispered. Her voice was thin, like a soft breeze through a cracked window, almost inaudible. "He says it's just like going to sleep." My throat tightened. A huge lump formed there. I couldn't speak. I just held her hand, feeling the fragile warmth of her skin. Her words were so simple, but they hit me like a thunderbolt. They were not talking about dying in a scary way. They were talking about fear, about easing it. They were giving these children peace in their last moments. I stood in that basement for a long, long time after Lila drifted back to sleep. I just stayed there, rooted to the spot. I listened to the quiet hum of the machines, the steady drip of the IVs. I heard the soft breathing of those frail lives. Each breath was a struggle, a tiny victory against the odds. They were hanging on to life, just barely, but with such quiet courage. My mind raced, trying to make sense of everything, all the fear outside, all the hate, all the ugly names people called the Fosters, the accusations of monsters and dark magic. And then, this quiet, gentle care, this profound love that asked for nothing in return, only to ease pain and fear. It was a love that was so big, so pure, it hurt to see it. I felt a shame wash over me, hot and stinging. I had doubted them. I had listened to the screams of the crowd. I had let the rumors cloud my judgment, just like everyone else. I had looked for monsters, and all I found was kindness. The real horror wasn't in that basement, not at all. It was outside, in the shouting and the fear. It was in the fear that made people hate. It was in the world that forgot these children, throwing them away like broken toys. It was in my own doubts, my own quick judgment. By the time the sun came up, painting the sky in soft pinks and oranges, the newspaper headlines were already changing. My boss had made calls to all the big news stations. Our report was out there, plain for everyone to see. The truth was finally starting to break through the clouds of lies and rumors. They said monsters or saints. The truth behind Brenton Falls' most controversial couple. The story was finally out there, plain for everyone to see, on every channel. We held meetings for the news people. We gave interviews, explaining everything we found. My voice was tired, but firm. I told them everything I saw in that basement. Doctors who had approved the adoptions spoke up. They shared stories of children who had no hope, no one to care for them, no place to spend their last days. Hospital workers shared how thankful they were for the Fosters' kindness. They talked about the children blooming in the Fosters' care, even as they faded away. But not everyone believed us. The online groups that spread wild stories kept making up new ones. They called us liars, part of the cover-up and the big conspiracy. The protesters outside the house got fewer, but they didn't go away completely. A few stubborn ones remained, still holding their signs, still muttering threats under their breath. Some people just couldn't change their minds. Their fear was too deep, too rooted. It was easier for them to believe in monsters than in such a big, hard love that they couldn't understand. Weeks later, Harold and Miriam asked me to come for supper again. I went without a moment's thought. The drive felt different this time, less tense. The house felt heavier when I arrived. It was quieter. The laughter from the garden was gone. 4 more children had passed away since my last visit. Their presence was deeply missed. Harold looked at me, his eyes tired, even older now. He seemed to shrink a little in his chair, carrying the weight of so much grief. Miriam sat beside him, holding his hand tightly. "Do you know what's worse than watching your child die, Detective?" he asked. His voice was barely a whisper, thin like Lila's, filled with a raw, ancient pain. I shook my head slowly. I couldn't imagine anything worse. My own heart felt heavy with the weight of so much sadness, so many little lives gone too soon. "Watching others walk away from theirs," he said. His words hung in the air, filling the quiet kitchen with their stark truth. They were words that stung, because I knew they were true. Miriam squeezed his hand. Her eyes were wet, but her gaze was steady and unwavering. She wasn't crying for herself. She was crying for the forgotten children, for the pain of their families who had to let them go. In the end, no charges were ever filed against them. No secret group was found. There was just sadness, a deep, quiet sadness that had touched so many lives. And that sadness, it had been turned into kindness. A kindness so big, it felt almost impossible to hold, almost too much for the world to bear. Months later, both Harold and Miriam passed away quietly in their sleep. They died just a few days apart. It was like they couldn't live without each other, their souls so intertwined. The old manor house was turned into a real hospice, a special place for sick children. It was named the Foster Children's Home to honor their legacy of love. People sent lots of money. Donations poured in from those who finally understood, from those who had been touched by their story, or by the shame of their own doubts. Sometimes I still go visit that place. It feels different now, not spooky like it did at first. The dark shadows of the trees don't feel so scary anymore, just old and wise. The laughter inside is different too, softer, more fragile. It's the sound of children living their last days in peace, surrounded by care, not fear. Sometimes I sit beside a tiny bed and just hold a child's hand, like Lila had held mine that night. I try to offer them the same peace that Harold and Miriam gave to so many, and sometimes, late at night, when the house is quiet and the moon shines through the clean windows, I just wonder. I wonder about the nature of good and evil. I wonder if the world really deserves people like Harold and Miriam Foster, people who loved so deeply, even strangers, even the ones no one else wanted. And I know for sure I didn't deserve their forgiveness, not for ever doubting them, not for letting the fear blind me to the truth of their immense, quiet kindness. I walk through the hallways now, and I don't see shadows anymore. I see the light of their kindness shining through every window, and I hear the soft whispers of children, not of fear, but of peace. I remember the first time we saw the loft. It wasn't the kind of place you stumbled upon on property websites or glossy brochures. We weren't looking for pretty pictures anyway. We were looking for quiet, for empty, for a place far away from everything, a place where the world couldn't reach us. The city had become a loud, scary monster, roaring all the time. Its sirens screamed, a constant wail in the night. Its people rushed, always pushing, always in a hurry. Its buildings felt like they were pushing in on us, closing off the sky, making us feel small and trapped. Kathy and I, we just couldn't breathe there anymore. The air felt thick with car fumes and hurried thoughts. Every breath felt shallow, like we were drowning slowly in plain sight. My job was gone, just like that. Poof. One day I was sitting at my desk, feeling pretty good about things, thinking about promotions and future plans. The next, a boss with a fake smile, too wide and too fixed, told me it was over. He talked about restructuring and downsizing, words that meant nothing but, "You're out." That feeling, it was like a punch to the gut. All the air left my body, leaving me empty and cold. I walked out of that office building, the glass doors swinging shut behind me like a final judgment. The city felt even bigger, even colder, its noise now a mocking roar. My phone felt heavy and useless in my hand, a brick with no purpose. Kathy was always worried, always looking over her shoulder. Every little noise in our apartment building made her jump. A car horn, a neighbor's door closing, even the wind rattling the window pane. She'd bite her lip, her eyes wide and dark, like she was waiting for something bad to happen, something just beyond our sight. Her shoulders were always hunched, like she was trying to make herself smaller. Every day felt heavy, like wet blankets pressing down on us, making it hard to move, hard to think. The weight of bills piled up on the kitchen counter, a silent accusation, the quiet fear of what was next that clawed at our throats. We'd sit on our small couch, not even talking much, just feeling it, the heavy silence between us. Our hands would find each other, a small comfort in the big, scary world. But even that felt weak. We just wanted to disappear, start fresh where no one knew our names. Just wake up somewhere new, where the air was clean and the past couldn't find us, couldn't whisper its old, bad words. That was our biggest wish, our desperate prayer. Our small apartment felt like a cage, walls closing in tighter each day, pressing on our chests. The air was thick with worry, like you could almost chew on it, and it tasted bitter, like old pennies. Every morning, I'd wake up feeling tired, even before my feet hit the floor, exhausted by yesterday. My bones ached with a tiredness that sleep couldn't fix, a deep, weary ache. Kathy would try to smile, but her eyes looked lost, like a little boat on a huge, dark ocean, searching for land that wasn't there. We used to laugh so much, a lot. Our apartment would echo with our jokes and silly stories, but the city squeezed the joy right out of us, like a sponge, leaving us dry and empty. We used to dream big dreams together, bright and shiny ones, full of color and laughter, but they felt tiny and broken there, just little pieces of glass on the floor, too small to fix. We'd talk about leaving, but it always felt like just talk. A pipe dream, as my dad used to say, something nice to think about but never real. We felt stuck, like flies caught in sticky spiderwebs, flapping our wings but going nowhere, just getting more tangled. Then, one rainy afternoon, the sky outside our window a bruised gray, Kathy looked at me, her eyes sudden and clear, like a break in the clouds. "Let's just go," she said, her voice quiet but firm. "Anywhere, far away." Her voice was soft but strong, like a bell ringing in a quiet room, cutting through the noise in my head. And for the first time in a long time, I felt a spark, a tiny bit of hope, deep down, like a small, warm flame. It was a crazy idea, stupid even, but it was our crazy idea. It felt like the only way out, the only door left open to us. We looked at each other, and we both knew. So we packed up the car, what little we had left. Just a couple of bags, some old books we couldn't part with, our favorite coffee mugs, chipped but still comforting, everything important but nothing that tied us to the old life. We didn't say goodbye to anyone, not really. There was no one to say goodbye to, not anymore. We just slipped away in the early morning light before the city truly woke up. The streets were empty, quiet for once, like it knew we were leaving, letting us go without a fight. The concrete giants loomed around us, silent witnesses to our escape. We drove until the city was a tiny dot in the mirror. It kept getting smaller and smaller, like a bad memory fading away, shrinking until it disappeared. We didn't look back much, only forward to the empty road stretching before us. We drove until the big roads turned into small ones, cracked and forgotten, winding like old ribbons. Then no roads at all, just dirt paths, red and dusty, winding through fields that stretched out forever, yellow and dry under a huge sun. The trees got taller, reaching up to the sky like old men's fingers, gnarled and bare. The sky got wider, a huge open blue, like a painted ceiling, endless and clear, with puffy white clouds floating by, slow and lazy. It felt so big out here, so free, like we could finally breathe again. The air started smelling clean, like pine needles and fresh dirt, instead of smoke and car fumes. It felt like we were finally heading somewhere good, somewhere real, somewhere our souls could rest. Maybe, just maybe, this was it, our new home. We talked about everything and nothing, silly things and serious plans. We sang along to old songs on the radio, off-key and loud, like we used to, back when laughter came easy. Laughter felt easy again, light and free, like birds taking flight from a cage. The miles rolled by, one after another, blurring into a long, quiet hum, the sound of our new journey. We watched the sun rise and set, painting the sky in colors I'd forgotten even existed, bright oranges and deep purples, fiery reds and soft pinks. We felt lighter with each mile, shedding the city's heavy cloak. We stopped at tiny diners, drinking bad coffee and eating greasy food, but it tasted like freedom. The open road was our new home. That's when we found ourselves at this tired old gas station. It was off a county highway, like a forgotten tooth in a long, empty smile, alone in a sea of fields. Dust blew around it, swirling in lazy circles, kicked up by the wind. The sign above the station was rusty, missing letters, swinging slowly on a creaking chain. An old, beat-up pickup truck was parked off to the side, looking like it hadn't moved in years, covered in a thick layer of red dust. The air was still and hot, shimmering over the asphalt. Kathy had gone inside to get some coffee, the kind that tastes like burnt wood and old tires. I could just imagine her face when she took the first sip, a grimace followed by a forced smile. I was outside, stretching my back, feeling the hours of driving in my bones, a deep ache. My muscles popped and groaned a little, stiff from sitting. I leaned against the car, feeling the warm metal through my shirt. The quiet was huge here, like a heavy blanket had been thrown over the world, muffling all sound. The sun beat down, warm on my face, making me squint, blinding me a little. There wasn't another car in sight, just our old beat-up sedan, all dusty from the long drive, looking small and alone. A forgotten sign for soda bottles swung on a rusty chain, creaking softly in the tiny breeze, a lonely sound. That's when the old man showed up. He came around the side of the building, moving slow, like he was made of old parts, creaking a little with each step. He dragged his feet on the dirt, sending up small clouds of dust. He had this baseball cap pulled low, all soaked with sweat and dust from years of wearing it, so faded it was hard to tell its original color. His face was lined, like a map of old roads, deep grooves around his mouth and eyes, each line telling a silent story. His eyes were dark, like deep puddles in a forest, and they seemed to see a lot, but showed nothing, no feeling, no warmth. He moved like the very air around him was heavy, thick, and hard to push through, like he carried a great weight. He seemed to watch me, but not really see me, like his gaze went right through me, to something far away, something I couldn't understand. It made me feel small, like I wasn't really there, just a blur in his ancient vision. His voice was low, just a mumble, like he was telling me a big secret or maybe even a confession. It sounded like gravel in a quiet stream, rough and soft at the same time, barely above a whisper. It didn't feel like he was talking to me, but past me, to the empty road, to the dry fields, to the distant sky. He stared ahead, not even blinking, his eyes fixed on something unseen. He pointed a bony finger, slow and shaky, toward the west, where the sun was starting to dip. "There's a place," he said, his voice barely a whisper, carried on the dry wind. The words were slow, like he was pulling them from deep inside his chest, like they were stuck there, unwilling to come out. "Ain't listed." He coughed, a dry, raspy sound, like old paper tearing or brittle bones grinding. "Big loft, out past Mill Creek. Folks don't go there no more." His words just hung in the air, thick and strange, like smoke from a dying fire. He said it like he was handing me a curse, not directions to a house, like it was a warning hidden in a gift, a poison wrapped in pretty paper, meant to look inviting. His eyes were flat, like two stones, cold and unmoving, but he didn't say anything else. Just watched me, his gaze heavy and still, not moving, not blinking. It made the hairs on my arms stand up, cold and prickly, like I was being watched by something not quite human. A shiver went down my spine, even in the hot sun, a feeling of deep dread. I should have known then, I really should have. When someone tells you about a house and they sound like they're talking about ghosts, you should probably just drive away. You shouldn't ask for the key, not ever. Not when every word feels like a brick wall slamming down. My gut clenched, a cold, tight knot forming deep inside. A voice inside me, small and scared, told me to get back in the car. To just drive away, far from here, far from him, far from that strange warning, to just forget I ever heard it. But Kathy and I, we were running so hard from our old life, from the gray choking city, that we didn't stop to think. We were blind, you know, blind with wanting something new, something fresh and clean. We told ourselves we needed somewhere open, somewhere we could finally breathe again, somewhere the air tasted clean and new, like spring rain after a long dry spell. We were so tired, you know, so tired of everything that hurt us that we just ignored the warnings. We just wanted a fresh start, a clean slate, a place where no shadows from our past could follow. We were easy to fool then. Desperate people make bad choices, and we were desperate. We grabbed onto that sliver of hope, held it tight, and wouldn't let go, even if it cut our hands. So, of course, I asked the man for directions. My voice sounded fake, too loud in the quiet air, a forced cheeriness. He gave them to me, his finger tracing lines in the dusty air, invisible paths that only he could see, pointing to a place no one visited. He didn't look at me, not once, just kept his eyes on the road. on something I couldn't see, something far in the distance. He mumbled a few more words about a turn near an old dried-up creek bed, a big old oak tree with a broken branch, and then a long dirt road. I wrote it all down on a napkin from the gas station, the kind that feels like thin sandpaper. The old man just nodded slowly when I was done, a slow, heavy nod, then turned and went back inside, his steps shuffling and slow, like he was tired down to his bones. Kathy came out, holding 2 hot cups of coffee, steam rising. She took a sip and made a face. "Ugh, tastes like dirt," she said, but she smiled, a little tired smile, trying to be cheerful. She looked at me, waiting, her eyes asking, "What did you find?" "Found a lead," I told her, my voice a little too bright, a little too happy, trying to sell the dream. "Old place, unlisted. Sounded good." I didn't tell her about the man's eyes or his strange, low voice. I didn't tell her the cold feeling he gave me, the shiver down my spine. I just showed her the napkin, already half believing this was our chance, our new beginning, our escape from everything bad. We got back in the car, and I pulled out the napkin. The directions were simple, almost too simple, like a child's treasure map. A few turns, a specific landmark, a bent old oak tree that looked like a giant hand reaching out, and then a dirt road that seemed to go nowhere, just into the endless fields. We followed them, mile after dusty mile. The sun was getting lower, painting the sky in soft oranges and pinks. The road got rougher, rocks bouncing under our tires, the trees thicker, pressing in on either side. I kept checking the rearview mirror, but there was nothing behind us, just dust and empty sky, nothing but our own lonely trail. The loft, when we first saw it, it looked beautiful. It really did. It sat on a low hill, all by itself, with skinny dry trees around it, their branches like twisted fingers. The fields stretched out, full of dry, dead plants, all yellow and brown, swaying in the evening breeze. But the sky above was huge and blue, like a painted ceiling, endless and clear, turning to soft twilight colors. The house looked like it had grown right out of the land, settled in, like a quiet watcher, waiting for something, or someone. The front of the house was mostly glass, old but sparkling clean, catching the last bits of the sun's light. It had these big wooden beams running through it, dark and sturdy, like the strong bones of some old animal holding it up. The glass caught the sun, like a giant eye blinking slowly at us. It looked like a big, quiet face staring out at the world, inviting us in. Kathy gasped when she saw it, a soft, happy sound like a sigh of relief. Her face lit up like someone had flicked a switch inside her, bright and hopeful, full of a joy I hadn't seen in months. A real, bright smile spread across her face, the kind that reached her eyes, making them sparkle like new stars. "It smells like old pine," she whispered, her voice soft and happy, like she was telling a secret to a friend. She walked up to the front door, running her hand along the rough wood, her fingers tracing the grain, feeling its age. "And something else. Something sweet," she added, her nose wrinkling just a little, but her smile staying put. It was like honey, or old flowers, or something from a forgotten garden. It felt warm and inviting, pulling us closer, promising peace. She looked back at me, her smile wide, her eyes full of light. The kind I hadn't seen in a long, long time. It made me think that maybe, just maybe, this was the first good idea we'd had in years. It felt like a promise, like the house was saying, "Come in, all your worries can stop here." We stood there for a long time, just taking it all in, breathing in the clean, sweet air, feeling the hope. We moved in that very week. There was no lease, no complicated papers, just a folded piece of paper signed by someone whose name looked more like a shaky line than a real name, fading ink on old paper. We didn't care, not one bit. We just wanted to be inside, to start our new life, to forget the old one. The key was heavy and old, made of dark iron, cold and solid. It felt cold in my hand, even in the warm sunlight, a strange weight. It fit the lock perfectly, turning with a smooth click that echoed in the quiet evening. The front door swung open with a soft groan, a welcoming sigh, letting us into the dark interior. The house felt huge, quiet, and full of empty space, waiting for us. We were alone, finally. The nearest neighbor was miles and miles away. We couldn't even see another house from our windows, just fields and sky, empty and endless. It was just us and the wide open sky and the silence, a deep, comforting silence. The first few mornings, we slept in late. The sun came through the big glass windows and woke us up gently, like a soft hand on our faces, warm and kind. It spread across the wooden floor, warm and golden, like a soft blanket, making the dust motes dance. We made love under those creaking wooden beams, our bodies tangled, like we were the only two people left on earth. Our whispers filled the quiet air. Our laughter was soft and easy, free and light. It was perfect, just perfect, a dream come true. For a while, I really thought we had done it. We had escaped the city's noise, escaped our own troubles, left them far behind. It felt like a weight had been lifted from our chests. A heavy stone rolled away, letting us breathe freely. We could finally breathe again. Deep, full breaths that filled our lungs with clean air. Air that tasted of pine and earth. The days were long and easy, filled with quiet moments and gentle smiles, no hurried words. We forgot about being scared, about being worried, about anything bad. We started fixing up the place, painting a wall here, moving a chair there, making it our own. It felt like a fresh start, like we were finally building something good, something real for us, brick by hopeful brick. Each nail we hammered felt like hope, solid and true. We hung our few pictures, photos of us laughing, and put our books on the shelves, filling the empty spaces. Kathy found some wildflowers in the fields, small and purple, and put them in a jar on the kitchen table. Little things, but they made it feel like ours, our home. We ate dinner outside on the porch, watching the stars come out bright and clear without city lights to dim them. We talked about our future, easy and happy words, like we used to, back before the city broke us. We planned our garden, even though we knew nothing about plants. We drew silly little pictures of what it would look like, full of bright flowers and green vegetables, a bounty of life. We picked names for imaginary pets, a big, shaggy dog named Barnaby and a fat, lazy cat named Mittens. We talked about what our lives would be like in 10 years, in 20, smiling at each other, seeing only good things ahead, only happiness. Kathy made up songs about the wind through the dry fields, humming soft tunes. Her voice was light and airy, like a bird's song in the morning. I carved little wooden birds for her, small and clumsy, but she loved them more than anything. She'd put them on the windowsills, and they looked like they were ready to fly right out into the sky, into our new freedom. The silence wasn't empty anymore. It felt full of peace, like a warm blanket wrapping around us, safe and sound. It felt like home, finally, truly home. We were happy, really, truly happy. Then, the house started changing. It began small, so small that at first I just shrugged it off. I remember going to the kitchen one night after Kathy had already gone to bed, the house quiet around me. I wanted a glass of water. My throat was dry from the long, happy day. I reached for the light switch, blinking in the dark, my hand moving to where it always was, by the door frame. The kitchen door, the one I walked through every day, the one that led to the hallway, it wasn't where it should have been. It was 2 feet to the left, just enough to make me stop, make me blink hard, and frown in confusion. My hand waved in the air where the switch should have been, empty space meeting my fingers. I had to feel along the wall to find it, my fingers tracing the cool wood. I shook my head. I must be tired, I thought. Groggy from the wine we had with dinner, my mind playing tricks. My eyes playing tricks on me in the dark, making shadows dance. I pushed the door open, feeling silly, a little confused, and a little cold. The next morning, the door was back where it should be. Exactly. It looked perfectly normal, as if nothing had ever moved. I told myself it was the dark, or my imagination, a trick of the mind. I was just tired, that's all. Kathy laughed it off the next morning. "You're getting old," she teased, poking my side with her elbow, her eyes twinkling with amusement. She said houses settle, old wood shifts, that it was normal for old places to groan and creak. She said the house was just breathing, stretching its old bones, settling into its new life with us. I wanted to believe her. I really did. It made sense. It felt good to believe her, to push the weird feeling away, to forget about it. But then it happened again, the very next morning. I woke up, and the window in our bedroom, the one that always showed the front drive and our car, the one that caught the morning sun, it showed the back garden instead. The sun was coming from the wrong direction, shining on the wrong wall of the room, lighting up the wrong view. It lit up the twisted tree in the garden, a tree that should have been on the other side of the house, not visible from here. I blinked, rubbed my eyes hard, trying to clear my head, trying to make the world right again. I looked at the garden, at the familiar twisted tree, but I knew it shouldn't be there. Not from this window, not this one, never this one. My stomach felt a little jumpy, a nervous flutter deep inside. I got out of bed, careful not to wake Kathy, still sleeping soundly beside me, and went to the window. I looked out, then turned to the other window, the one that should show the garden. It showed the front drive. Everything had flipped. It was like the whole room had spun around in the night, but quietly, without a sound, without a creak or a groan. It made no sense at all. My mind felt fuzzy trying to figure it out, trying to piece together the puzzle. I didn't say anything to Kathy that time. I just got out of bed and went to make coffee, the smell a comforting anchor. Maybe it was still my imagination, or some trick of the light, a weird dream I couldn't shake. I didn't want to worry her, not yet, not when things felt so good, when she was so happy. Another night, I woke up needing to go to the bathroom. It was the middle of the night, pitch black, the kind of dark that feels heavy. I stumbled out of bed, my feet feeling for the cold wooden floor, walking a path I knew by heart, counting steps. I started down the narrow hall, my arms out in front of me, like a blind man, feeling for the wall. But the bathroom was stretched deeper, longer, like someone had just added an extra 20 feet to the small hall, just stuck it on. It was like walking into a tunnel that wasn't there before, a long, dark passage. The darkness felt heavier here, pressing in, thick and alive, wrapping around me. It swallowed the air, made it hard to breathe, suffocating me. My bare feet stuck slightly to the hardwood, like the boards had been freshly varnished in something sticky, something I couldn't see in the dark, something that pulled at my skin. It made a soft, tearing sound when I lifted my foot, like tape being pulled off a surface, a sickening rip. I touched the wall, feeling for the door frame, and it felt too far away, stretching into the blackness. My heart started thumping a little harder, a cold, hard beat in my chest, a drum of fear echoing in the silence. This wasn't settling. This was different. This was wrong. My mind screamed at me, a silent shout in the dark. I finally found the bathroom door, pulling it open with a shaky hand. The light was harsh, making me squint, blinding me for a second, then burning my eyes. The bathroom was normal though, just the hallway had changed, stretching out like a rubber band. I leaned against the doorframe, breathing hard, listening to the silence of the house. A silence that felt like it was watching me, waiting. I didn't tell Kathy about that night. I just couldn't. I didn't want to scare her. Not yet. I wanted to believe it was still my tired mind, some crazy dream spilling into real life, blurring the edges. I told myself I needed more sleep, that I was just stressed from the move, that the quiet out here was playing tricks on my ears, making me imagine things, that the darkness was just darker than I was used to. That's all. At first, it was easy to lie to ourselves, to pretend we didn't see what we were seeing, to shrug it off. Old construction settles strange, we told each other, trying to make it sound normal. It's probably our imaginations, or just us getting used to a new place. We even laughed about it sometimes, a little too loud, a little too quickly, forcing the sound out like a cough. We tried to make light of it, to push the strange feelings down, deep down, where we wouldn't have to look at them, wouldn't have to face them. But the house didn't just settle. It moved. It changed itself, piece by piece, like it was alive, a living, breathing thing with its own will, like it was trying on different clothes, or stretching its limbs in the dark, testing its strength, changing its shape. It would rearrange itself when we weren't looking, then settle back before we noticed too much, like a trickster playing a game, daring us to notice. The changes got bigger, harder to explain away, pushing into our lives, making the normal feel foreign. One morning, the kitchen felt smaller, as if the walls had pressed in. The pantry door was gone, replaced by a smooth, unbroken wall. We searched for it, calling out names, laughing nervously, but it was just gone. Kathy said it was probably just a wall we never noticed, that we hadn't explored every inch of the huge place. I pretended to agree, but my heart beat faster. I knew where the pantry was. I used it every day. One night, while Kathy was asleep beside me, breathing soft and even, I couldn't sleep. The house felt restless, like a giant animal shifting in its sleep, its bones creaking, its breath sighing around us, a low, deep sound. I could almost feel it humming around me, a low, deep vibration in the floorboards, under my very skin. I got up, my bare feet on the cold wooden floor. I walked slowly, drawn by a feeling I couldn't name, a pull in my chest, a morbid curiosity. The hallway wasn't straight anymore. It bent softly to the right, curling like a snake, leading me somewhere new, somewhere I hadn't been before, somewhere deep inside. The familiar became strange, twisting before my eyes, defying logic. I swear I could smell something wet, like soil after a long rain, even though it hadn't rained in weeks, not a drop. It was a fresh, earthy smell, but it felt out of place, wrong for an indoor space, heavy and thick, like a grave. The silence was different too, not peaceful, but thick, like a blanket thrown over my head, muffling everything, even my own thoughts. It felt like the house was holding its breath, waiting, watching my every step, listening to my every heartbeat. I kept walking, feeling a pull I couldn't fight, like an invisible hand pushing me forward, deeper into the house's twisting guts. The house was calling me, deeper and deeper into its dark heart, and I couldn't stop. I couldn't. A puppet on invisible strings. The real change started the night Kathy found the door. It wasn't a door I recognized at all. It was heavy oak, dark and strong, painted red but peeling like old skin, like a sunburn gone bad, revealing dark wood beneath, scarred and old. It looked ancient, like it had been there for 100 years, maybe more, standing silent witness to countless moments. It was in the guest room, a room we barely used, covered in white sheets. It was tucked away behind a big, old wardrobe that I could swear we'd never even moved, that had always stood against a different wall. It was like the house had just grown it there, overnight, a new and terrible limb, a dark secret made real, like a mushroom sprouting in the dark, pushing its way through the floor, unexpected and unwelcome. It didn't fit with the rest of the house, not at all, its dark wood and peeling paint clashing with our pale walls. It was too old, too dark, too important. It looked like it held a huge secret, something very, very old, something waiting to be opened. Kathy stood in front of it, her hand out, like she was about to knock on it, her fingers hovering, trembling just slightly, almost touching the rough wood. Her face was pale, stretched thin with curiosity, a strange hunger in her eyes that I didn't recognize. Her eyes were wide, looking at the door like it was a long-lost friend, someone she'd been waiting for her whole life. But there was something else there too, in her eyes, something I couldn't place, a glimmer of something cold and distant. A strange kind of longing, like she'd been searching for it her whole life and finally found it hidden in our house. It chilled me to the bone, a coldness that had nothing to do with the temperature, a deep, creeping dread. "Where did this come from?" I asked, my voice a whisper, barely a sound in the silent room. I already felt the dread rising in my gut, like bad milk, sour and heavy, twisting inside me. My stomach twisted, a cold knot forming deep inside, tightening with fear. "I don't know," she whispered back, not taking her eyes off the door, not even looking at me, lost in her own world. Her voice was far away, like she was talking in a dream, like she was hearing something I couldn't hear, a private conversation. "But it feels familiar." Familiar? How could a door we'd never seen before feel familiar? My mind raced, trying to find an answer, trying to make sense of her words. But there was nothing, just empty space, a blank where logic should be. Just the strange, ancient door and Kathy's pale face, filled with a look I didn't know, a look that terrified me. It was a look that scared me more than the door itself. A look that said she was already leaving me, piece by piece, slipping away into something I couldn't touch. I reached for her hand, wanting to pull her away, to shake her awake, to bring her back to me. But my hand just hovered, afraid to break the spell, afraid of what I might find. She didn't move, just stood there, staring at the red door. Lost. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay next to Kathy, listening to her soft breaths, the only normal sound. But my mind was screaming, louder and louder, a panicked wail. I dreamed of footsteps behind the walls, dull thuds and scraping sounds, like something heavy was being dragged, something big and rough. Heavy boots on rotten planks, dragging something sharp and slow, tearing the wood. Each drag made my teeth ache, like nails on a chalkboard, a raw, terrible sound, sending shivers through me. I could almost feel the rough wood under those boots, feel the splinters digging in, feel the weight of whatever was being pulled. I woke up suddenly, my heart jumping, pounding hard in my chest, a frantic drum. A cold dread clung to me, thick and heavy, like a shroud. I heard laughter. It wasn't Kathy's soft, sleepy sound, and it certainly wasn't mine. It was too high, too cold. It was a cold, high laugh, like dry leaves scraping together in the wind, a brittle, ugly sound that tore at the air. It was coming from somewhere inside the walls, echoing all around us from every direction, bouncing off the surfaces. It wasn't a happy sound, not at all. It sounded like something cruel, something old and wicked, finding joy in something bad, something painful. It made my skin prickle, my hair stand on end, a cold wave washing over me. The next day, I went straight to the guest room. My feet felt heavy, like lead weights, dragging on the floor with each step. I needed to see that door again, to prove to myself it was real, that I hadn't just dreamed it up, that I wasn't going crazy. But the guest room was gone. Not just the door, the entire room. A blank wall had replaced it. Clean, smooth, like it had always been there, like it was a part of the original house, perfectly seamless, painted recently, as if the house had decided that part of itself was no longer necessary, that it just didn't need it anymore, and erased it. It was like magic, but bad magic, dark and sneaky, playing tricks on my mind. It made my head spin, trying to understand, trying to find what was there. We should have left right then. We should have packed the car, thrown everything inside, and driven until the tires fell apart, until we ran out of gas, until the car died. Driven until we hit the ocean, or the desert, or anywhere else on Earth, just to be gone. But we didn't. We just stood there, staring at the blank wall, and a strange quiet fell between us, thick and heavy, a silence full of unspoken fear. Kathy's hand found mine, but her fingers felt cold, like stone, lifeless and still, not warm like before. Maybe it was just pure stupidity, a kind of stubborn blindness that wouldn't let us see the truth. Or maybe it was the way Kathy's eyes kept going distant, like she was seeing something I wasn't, something far away and blurry, beyond my reach, calling her away. She would stare at the new wall with a strange, dreamy look, like it held all the answers she was looking for, all the secrets of the world. She was already slipping away, little by little, into whatever the house was becoming, fading like a whisper. Or maybe it was because I loved her, and I didn't want to leave her there, not alone, not abandoned. Even if she was already halfway gone, already slipping away into whatever the house was becoming, I couldn't leave her. I just couldn't, not my Kathy. I held her hand, and my own hand felt warm against hers, but the warmth couldn't reach her, couldn't thaw the coldness, couldn't bring her back. It was like she was already slipping away from me, piece by piece, disappearing into a fog I couldn't pierce. It got worse. Much, much worse. The house felt like a living maze, changing around us without a sound, without a warning. Doors led to rooms that shouldn't even exist, impossible spaces that bent the rules of normal houses, defying all sense. I'd open the pantry, expecting food, and find myself in a long, dark hall that stretched into forever. The smell of dust and something musty filled my nose, making me cough, a dry, hacking sound. It stretched into blackness, without a hint of light, a terrifying tunnel. I'd open the closet, looking for a coat, and stare into a small, dusty room with a single rocking chair in the center. It would sway just slightly, back and forth, as if someone had just left it, or was still sitting there, invisible, watching me. The air in there was heavy and still, thick with old dust and the scent of forgotten things, of lives lived and ended. It felt like time had stopped, waiting for me to step inside, to join whatever was in there, whatever ghost sat in that chair. I found a bathroom once, tiled in black, all dark and shiny, reflecting the dim light like a dark mirror, showing me distorted shapes. The tub was filled with stagnant water, still and greenish, with a thick, oily film on top, like pond scum. It looked thick and slimy, like something had died in it long ago, left to rot, festering in the dark. I leaned over it, and it reflected not me, but some awful version of me that smiled too wide, a creepy, stretched smile that wasn't mine. My own face looked scared, pale and drawn, but the reflection just grinned, a cold, cruel smile, full of malice. It looked so happy to see me, so pleased with my fear, reveling in it. I gasped, stumbling back, my heart pounding, a wild drum against my ribs. The reflection shimmered, then went still, its eyes following me as I moved, a silent, unblinking gaze that chilled me. I ran from that bathroom, my stomach churning, my mind racing, trying to forget what I saw, trying to erase the image from my mind. Another time, I swear I heard a child's laughter. It echoed down one of the new halls, a light, tinkling sound like tiny bells, innocent and sweet, but it felt cold, like ice against my skin, sending shivers down my arms. It sounded like it was playing, happy and carefree, but there was no child in our house, not ever. The laughter was soft, but it carried, following me, seeming to come from everywhere and nowhere, surrounding me in its cold mirth. It was too happy, too light, for a house that felt so dark, so heavy with secrets, with silent screams. It made me look over my shoulder, even though I knew nothing would be there, just empty space and shadows, nothing to see. Kathy started talking in her sleep, soft mutterings like whispers in a language I didn't know, a language that felt old, very old, ancient and strange. But it felt wrong, like broken teeth against my ears, scratching at my brain, like something trying to get in, to twist her words, to change her. It wasn't English, and it wasn't any language I'd ever heard, not in books, not on TV, not anywhere in my life. It sounded ancient and cruel, like a song from a forgotten time, a chant meant to open doors to terrible things. It was the sound of something unholy, something truly evil, bubbling up from deep inside her, from a place I couldn't reach. I would lie awake, listening, my eyes wide in the dark, tears burning, helpless to stop it, helpless to save her. She'd wake up and not remember a thing, just blink at me, like she was seeing me for the first time, her eyes empty but bright, like they were made of glass, reflecting nothing. She would ask what was for breakfast, like nothing had happened, like the night had been perfectly normal, like she hadn't screamed strange words. I'd watch her, her movements quick and light, her smile easy, and I'd feel a terrible ache in my chest. This wasn't my Kathy, not fully. She was slipping away, bit by bit, into the house, dissolving into its walls. One evening, as the sun bled out behind the hills, painting the sky in reds and purples, I stood in the living room. I was staring at a hallway that hadn't been there that very morning. It just appeared, like a sudden hole in the wall, black and deep. It twisted sharply, turning and doubling back on itself in impossible ways, like a twisted knot of wood. It was like someone drew a blueprint for a nightmare and then built it right into my house, brick by impossible brick, defying all geometry. My head hurt, just looking at it, trying to make sense of the bending lines. "Kathy," I called softly, my voice barely a whisper in the huge, quiet house, swallowed by the empty air. It felt like the house was listening, holding its breath, waiting for my next move, for my voice. "Where are you?" No answer, only the growing silence, thick and heavy, pressing down on me, smothering me. The air felt colder around me, like the house was breathing out an icy sigh, pushing its cold breath into my lungs. It smelled like damp earth and something else, something I couldn't name but tasted like dust and death. I moved slowly, stepping into the new corridor, my feet dragging, heavy and unwilling. The floor seemed to breathe under my feet, the old wood shifting and creaking with each step I took, like a living thing, a giant sleeping beast. It felt alive, like walking on a sleeping beast, waiting to wake up, to swallow me whole, to digest me. The smell of soil was stronger here, damp and heavy, clinging to my clothes, to my hair. And beneath it, something else. Rot. Something that had been dead for a very, very long time. Something that had decayed into goo. A sweet, sick smell that made my stomach turn, making me want to gag, to vomit, to empty myself of it. It was the smell of decay, of slow, creeping death, of bodies long forgotten. It filled my nose, my mouth, tasting bitter, like ash. Kathy? My voice cracked this time, sharp against the swallowing silence of the house, desperate. It felt like the walls were eating the sound, taking it in, like they were hungry for it, hungry for me, for my fear, for my despair. When I found her, she was sitting cross-legged in a room I didn't recognize, a place that had never been there before, that had simply appeared. It was huge, dark, and filled with shadows, reaching like long fingers from the corners, clinging to the walls. It looked like a library, with tall shelves packed tight with books, reaching up to a ceiling I couldn't see. But the books were old and dusty, covered in a thick layer of grime, their edges crumbling. Their titles were scratched away, covered in so much grime I couldn't read a single one. It was like they didn't want anyone to know what they were about, what secrets they held, what words they contained, keeping them hidden. She was humming softly, a low, quiet tune I'd never heard before. A strange, ancient melody that chilled me. Her fingers traced along the spines of the books, like she was reading them with her skin, feeling the words, absorbing them. She was mouthing words I couldn't hear, silent and strange, her lips moving slowly, forming sounds without voice. Her lips moved, forming words that weren't words, but sounds that seemed to come from very far away, from another world, from outside of time. Her eyes were shining, like wet glass, reflecting some light I couldn't see, a light that wasn't there, a light from within. They looked empty, but full of something else, too, something ancient and terrible, something knowing. "They're teaching me," she said, her voice far away, like an echo in a cave, calm and peaceful, like she had found her true purpose. Her gaze was fixed on the dusty books, like they were the most important thing in the world, the only thing that mattered. Her words were calm, too calm, like she was dreaming a dark dream. "Who?" I asked, my voice tight, a strained sound, thin with fear. My throat felt dry, like sandpaper. I felt a cold dread wrapping around my heart, squeezing it tight, making it ache, a slow, painful throb. "The house," she answered, still looking at the books, not even glancing at me. Her smile was small, secret, and it didn't reach her eyes, not at all. A dead smile. It was a smile I had never seen on her face before, cold and knowing, like a predator. It was in that moment I realized something truly awful. Kathy wasn't afraid. Not at all. She was home. She looked more at peace in that dusty, strange room than she had in years, more comfortable than she ever was with me, or with herself. And that terrified me more than anything else. It was like she had found her true place, and it wasn't with me. Not anymore. My stomach dropped, cold and heavy, a lead weight. The house had taken her, piece by piece, right in front of my eyes, stolen her from me, and I couldn't fight it. I tried to grab her hand, to pull her away, to shake her, to scream her name, but she just turned back to the books, humming softly, her fingers still tracing the words. She was gone, already gone, lost to me forever. I felt a terrible emptiness, a hole torn in my chest. Days blurred into a long, dark stretch without sun or moon, just endless twilight. I don't remember eating. I barely remember sleeping, if I slept at all. The house didn't let me leave anymore. It wouldn't. Every door I tried, every window, it just led somewhere else, deeper inside its twisting heart. I opened the front door, the one that led outside, the one we came through, and found myself in a dark basement. It was filled with whispering voices like dry leaves rustling, too soft to hear words, but full of meaning, calling my name, telling me secrets. The whispers seemed to crawl into my head like tiny bugs, telling me things I couldn't quite understand, but that made my skin prickle, cold and raw, making me itch. They were cold, soft, and endless, a constant murmur in the dark, a chorus of forgotten souls. I opened another door, hoping for freedom, hoping for the wide-open sky, hoping for any way out, for a glimpse of the real world, and found myself in a bedroom. The furniture was draped in white plastic, like dead bodies under sheets, waiting for burial, for their final rest. It smelled stale and old, like a tomb, filled with forgotten air and quiet decay. Dust motes danced in the slivers of light, like tiny ghosts swirling in the air. The bed was made, the covers pulled tight, waiting, inviting me to lie down, to never wake up. Attics, huge attics that smelled of piss and old blood, opened up where hallways should have been. Each one was darker than the last, filled with things I didn't want to see, shadows moving just out of sight, just beyond my vision. Things that watched me from the shadows, eyes I couldn't quite make out, blinking in the darkness. Things that moved just at the edge of my sight, like bad memories, or something trying to grab me, reaching out with unseen hands. I would turn my head fast, but they would be gone, leaving only the dark. Just empty darkness, and the smell, always the awful smell. The house was alive, and it was playing with me, twisting itself into a cruel joke, a never-ending nightmare, trapping me in its game. I tried breaking a window once, with a desperate strength, a final surge of will. I found a crowbar under the kitchen sink, a heavy piece of metal, cold and solid in my hand, a last bit of hope, cold and hard. I swung it as hard as I could at the big front glass, putting all my weight into it. I put all my fear, all my anger into that swing, all my despair. But the glass didn't shatter. It rippled like water, like I was hitting a pond, sending waves out, smooth and unbroken. It bent and swayed, like it was made of thick syrup, then pushed the crowbar back at me, gently, almost playfully. The crowbar I was holding, it bent too, turning into a useless, twisted piece of metal in my hands, hot and melted, burning my skin, hurting me. The house laughed at my efforts, a soft, dry chuckle that came from the walls, all around me, mocking my weakness. It was a quiet, mocking sound, telling me how stupid I was to try, how helpless I truly was, how much it owned me. The glass was whole again, shimmering, like nothing had touched it, perfectly clear. My hands were shaking, trembling with defeat and pain. The worst part wasn't the moving walls, or the impossible angles that made my head spin, trying to find a straight line in the madness. It wasn't even the things I sometimes saw out of the corner of my eye, shadows that moved too fast to be real, too quick to catch, too fleeting. It was Kathy's laughter. She laughed like she used to when we were young, wild and full of hope, carefree and light, just the two of us, together, forever. Only now, it echoed wrong, an ugly, hollow sound. It stretched out and thin, like an old cassette tape warping in the sun, making the sound tinny and broken, a terrible parody. It made my skin crawl, a cold dread spreading through my veins, freezing me from the inside out. It wasn't her laugh, not really. It was something else wearing her laugh like a mask, something hollow and empty inside, something that felt dead. It was too light, too airy, with no real joy, just a chilling emptiness that settled in my heart, a constant ache. And sometimes, it came from places she wasn't, not anywhere near. I'd hear it from the kitchen when she was in the bedroom, clear as day. I'd hear it from upstairs when she was right beside me, holding my hand, her eyes blank, looking through me. Was the house, twisting her sounds, mocking me with her voice, with her old happiness, reminding me of what I lost. It was a constant reminder that she was gone, taken from me, right here in front of my eyes, swallowed by the house. One night, a new staircase appeared, growing from the floorboards, pushing up through the wood. I hadn't seen it before. It just opened up in the middle of what used to be the living room floor, without a sound, just a dark hole opening up, swallowing the light, drawing me in. It led straight down, into the dark ground, like a mouth swallowing the air, breathing in the shadows, exhaling cold. It spiraled, winding tighter and tighter as it descended, like a corkscrew going into the earth, endless, pulling me deeper. The wood was dark, almost black, and felt slick under my hands as I reached for the railing, cold and damp. The air grew colder with each step, biting at my exposed skin, chilling me to the bone, making me shiver uncontrollably. The smell of earth was thick and choking, like being buried alive, like I was already in a grave deep underground, the soil pressing in around me. It was the smell of ancient things long buried waking up. Somewhere deep below me, I heard Kathy humming. The same low, strange tune she hummed in the library, the one that made my teeth ache, a constant buzz in my head. It pulled me down. It pulled me in, like a string tied to my heart, tight and strong, pulling me against my will. I followed, because what else was I supposed to do? There was no other way out, no other direction to go, no light to follow, no escape. It was like the house was guiding me, leading me right where it wanted me to be, a lamb to the slaughter. The staircase didn't end. I swear I walked for hours, one foot after another, down, down, down into the black. Days, maybe. Time didn't mean anything anymore in this place. It blurred, folding in on itself. Up was down, and yesterday was today, all mixed together. My legs ached. My throat burned, dry and raw. But I kept going, pushed by that terrible pull, by the sound of her humming. My lungs hurt with the cold, damp air, each breath a struggle, filling me with dust and dread. Each step was a struggle, my muscles screaming, but something stronger than me pushed me forward, an unseen force, a dark will. It was a terrible pull, a dark hunger, calling me deeper into the earth, into the house's waiting maw. Eventually, after what felt like forever, after my hope was almost gone, a tiny flicker, I found her. She was standing in a massive stone chamber. It was so big, I couldn't see the walls or the ceiling, just endless darkness stretching away from me. It was just endless darkness, a huge cavern carved out of the earth itself, rough and cold. It was lit by nothing I could see, no lamps, no windows, nothing. No torch, no flicker, no light source at all, just a dim glow. But it glowed faintly, a soft, pale light, like the way your eyes keep glowing when you stare into a flashlight too long and then close them, a residual glow. It was a cold, dim light, but it showed her face clearly, stark and beautiful in the gloom. She turned to me, her face thinner, sharper, almost beautiful in a way that terrified me, a cruel beauty carved from ice. Her cheekbones stood out, her eyes seemed larger, black and bottomless, swallowing the faint light. Her eyes were not like wet glass anymore. They were like deep pools, reflecting the strange light, full of an old, deep knowing, like she held all the secrets of the world in them, all the terrible truths. They were the house's eyes, watching me, judging me. "I know where it leads now," she said softly, her voice calm and sure, not a tremor in it, perfectly even. She took a step towards me, her hands open, inviting me closer, a silent plea. "We don't belong where we were, not really. We belong here. We belong to the house." Her voice was like silk, smooth and gentle, but each word was a hammer blow to my chest, driving nails into my heart, shattering my last bit of hope. It wasn't Kathy talking, not my Kathy, not anymore. She was gone. It was the house talking through her, its words spilling from her lips, a puppet. I tried to scream. I opened my mouth, pushed air out, hard and fast, but no sound came out. My throat felt closed, like something was holding it shut, squeezing it tight, stealing my voice. The walls, the very air around me, ate the sound, swallowed it down whole, like the house was feeding on my terror, on my fear and my horror, drinking it in like water, nourishing itself. It feasted on my screams, and then it hushed them, leaving me silent and afraid, a silent victim. My voice was gone, just a silent gasp, trapped inside me, struggling to get out. I stumbled back, my eyes wide, fixed on Kathy, on the stranger wearing her face. My heart hammered, a frantic bird trapped in my ribs, beating itself against its cage. I ran. I don't remember choosing to, I just ran. My legs moved on their own, carrying me back up the stairs, back through rooms that weren't mine, rooms that shifted as I passed them, twisting and turning, always changing. The staircase twisted behind me, changing as I climbed, like it was trying to swallow me, to pull me back down into the dark. The ground beneath me shifted, groaned, and fought against my steps, making me stumble, trying to trip me. I ran past doors that led to identical copies of our living room, over and over and over, an endless nightmare. Each one was the same, but slightly different, like a bad dream repeating itself, mocking me, never letting me rest. The same couch, the same table, the same dusty air, but somehow off, somehow wrong, a subtle shift. I thought I'd gone insane, running in circles, lost forever, a hamster on a wheel that never stopped, never slowing down, always running. My breath hitched in my throat, hot and burning, like fire, scorching my insides. My mind felt like it was breaking apart, pieces scattering, lost in the house's endless maze. I felt myself losing control, slipping away into madness. Finally, after what felt like a lifetime of running, after all my strength was gone, my legs screaming in protest, I found the front door again. The same door, the one that should have led outside, the one we had walked through full of hope, full of dreams. It was locked. It always had been, ever since the house decided to keep us, a prisoner in its walls. But now, something was different about it. It was breathing. I could see it, shallow movements, in and out, like a chest rising and falling, slow and steady. Slowly, in and out, in sync with my own heartbeat. Like the house and I were one thing, one pulsing, beating organ of old wood and regret, tied together, forever. It was a sickening feeling, like my own body was turning against me, part of the trap, part of the house. Behind me, I heard her footsteps, software deliberate. Not rushing, not at all. Why would she rush? She already knew the ending. She already knew I was trapped, a fly in a giant web, helpless, doomed. I turned around and saw her there, standing at the end of the long, shifting hallway. She was smiling. A wide, bright smile, like the first day we met, when everything was full of hope and new beginnings, full of light. But her eyes were still those deep, knowing pools, dark and empty of me, reflecting only the house. The smile was just a trick, a cruel mask, put on by the house, a final mockery. It wasn't for me, it was for the house. She was just a part of it now, completely. And that's when I realized the house didn't want me dead. Death was too merciful, too quick, too easy. It wanted me lost. It wanted me forever. It wanted to keep me here, trapped in its twisting insides, a living trophy, a constant meal. It wanted me to become part of its breathing, part of its terrible, endless life, forever bound to it. It wanted to consume me, like it had consumed Kathy, like it had consumed so many others before us, swallowed them whole, leaving no trace. And somewhere, deep below, beneath the twisting hallways and the disappearing rooms, the house whispered one word into my ear, a cold, soft whisper, like wind through dry leaves, a final, terrible invitation, a promise of eternal horror. Stay, and God help me. God help my soul, I think I will. I think I have to. There's nowhere else to go, no light, no escape, no hope. The front door is breathing. Kathy is smiling, and the house is waiting. And I am here, forever.